Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kyra here, joined with Veiled Shot once again for another Infinite Magicraid video, and this one is going to be a long one. This is actually us from the future. We have already done this. We have done a very exhaustive tier list. You can see down below, there will be timestamps down below on exactly where to go if you'd like to jump around. We're going to be breaking down every single one of these characters here for this tier list, so you can see where they're at and why we picked these spots here. Also keep in mind, this is a PvE only tier list for exclusives 0 through 1, because for most people, talking like 99% of people, they're only going to have exclusive 0 through 1. So I don't want to give you guys a tier list breaking down, oh, amazing at E3, but you're never going to get there. So who cares? So that's why we are really hard focusing on E0 to 1.
Yeah, and I'll mention this because since we're at the beginning of the video now, we don't have to wait for someone to get to hour and a half in the video. But each of these characters, there's so much context in each of the placements. For example, a lot of the C tier characters are literally only in C because of one ability, and you'll have to watch the video to see. So if you guys are disagreeing with a placement of a specific character, it's going to be a long video. You may not have watched all of it, but when you place a comment, you might be saying exactly what we said in the video, but you looked at the general list, and it's way farther down. So
yeah, which helps a lot. And I don't blame you guys for not watching this whole thing. This is definitely gonna be one of those ones you jump around. This is just gonna be left here. I'd be shocked if you guys watch it all the way through. This is a marathon. So this is a full feature length movie here. We're borderline against Avatar. The new one there. So
number 2 at the box office here. This
number 2. This is it. That's number 1. We're number 2. Unfortunately, not in 3D though. We didn't get a 3D showing for this video, but bummer. Bummer for sure. Next tier list is going to be in water. Next tier list will be in water. I think that
ambitious crossover.
Okay. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think. And with that, we are out of here. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first character here, we're just going to go in the order of how they show up on the assets here. I think that's probably the best way to do it. So starting with, we have Nid Rold. Okay, amazing damage dealer, one of the best in Guild Boss. It recently got changed, very unique too, with his passive being based off bleeds and not being able to crit though. But then his damage is all based off his mastery as well. So very good character. I'm very high on this character. I'm thinking high A, borderline S.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe I'm more extreme than you. I actually think he's top 3 in the game, like legitimately. I think that for Rum, just absolutely insane damage, because when you start mixing like mass amounts of ignore defense and just really decent multipliers, you start to get like a really insane character. And I think Nid Rold, because of how important I think Guild Boss is, and some of the dungeons are, like, to me, he's definitely an S. I could see like a mid S or something like that, but for me, it's S.
Okay, like I was borderline on it, so we'll average it out where you're super high on him. I'm like thinking A plus, maybe like S minus, but you've convinced me. I think he's a solid S. Solid S, and then as we get better gear, because I think these bleed characters, especially with the passive here, and his nuking ability with his E1 here, like that part too is very good, and it's very easy to ignore, I believe. I think a lot of people underrate his A2 once you get it E1'd, because it's like one of the hardest hitting nukes in the game, especially if they already have debuffs on them.
Yeah, the multiplier doesn't matter when you ignore 80% defense.
yeah, exactly. And then you get to recast it multiple times. It's actually insane. Okay. So now we got Valentin here. This guy, I'm curious what you think about this guy here.
He's a C to me.
C, okay. Yeah, I feel like let's do a little due diligence to this guy, because I think people like him easily get ignored, maybe a little slept on. So we have the deals 200% attack to a single enemy with a 60% chance to reduce their defense. So it's, if you put a ton of affected on him, you can make that guaranteed. Bounces 2 times among all enemies after attacking a single enemy, dealing 200. Deals 400% if there's only one target. It's still not enough. His exclusive 2 is the thing that affects him there. Let's check it as exclusive 1 here. Valentin cleanses all debuffs when he enters the Power Surge form. And I'm just trying to make this actually
so my
show.
problem with him is like you have the defense down. You can maybe he's a B, maybe like a high C, low B is kind of where I have him at. But like if I compare a single target damage to any character, like for example Yoko, Zia, even like the new character Tifia or Slivelle, they're not comparable to me. And if that's the case, like if I can literally off the top of my head mention 4 or 5 characters that I'd rather have than him, to me, like not only is he like, arguably kind of mediocre, like his damage numbers, if you're not in his ultimate form, are kind of mediocre, but also just, it's hard to put him in a spot when you have so many people better than him. Even Mutu's sweet,
and he would be significantly better as well. Like looking at this old, I think that really sealed the deal for me. And it's like, this is just not a good character. I mean, like there's definitely worse, but at the same time, there's so many characters that you can name just off the top of your head there that are significantly better. So I think C is definitely where he belongs. Okay, so now let's go to space. So I think space is an S. I think, S stands for space there. Maybe like low S, but like she's, even though PvP is not on here, like God tier in PvP, and then God tier in most PvE scenarios, I think maybe people might not like her because a lot of people start to use her when she's kind of weak in campaign. But when you actually fully max her out and don't have 100 turn cap on when you want to actually complete content, everything about her is amazing, especially against bosses. They have a ton of speed, usually in like the 2000 range, Ifrit in the 3000 range. So a lot of people kind of get when they first start to do dungeons, a lot of people are transitioning from campaign and they have really low speed. So this is one of those situations where, yes, you need better gear and get faster, but at the same time, speed really helps with that, especially early. So I think that's one of the major selling points for space, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I haven't built her, to be honest. Like I've used her a lot, but I haven't really built her out. And that there's often times where I'm like, dang, I really wish I had space built out. To me, she's like a boring character. She's just like, she's just good and she's just solid, but she's boring. But there's so many times where I'm like, dang, I really wish I could get first turn here without having to jack up my speeds by like 200 a piece. So I actually am really high on her for sure.
I do think the exclusive one is, there's definitely way better exclusive ones out there. Reduces 10% more turn meter, increases 100% attack. It is good if you end up having it. 25% turn meter reduction on an auto attack is insane, but at the same time, definitely a lot more impactful E1s. But yeah, I completely agreed with what you're saying. It's a boring character, but at the same time, it's like one of those like really, it's just not the fun parts. You want like the big damage, you want like the Zia exclusive stuff like that, where it's like, okay, fine. It's like bookkeeping. It's like, okay, yes, objectively you are better, but at the same time, that's definitely not something, especially with how hard it is to book level up characters. Very frustrating to have to get space up. Okay, so now what's up?
This next character, guys.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Here, I know exactly where she's going. She's going straight up.
This is my favorite one in the whole game, on par with Hisanya. Like, actually, I love Slivelle so much. I wish I had. She's my most wanted character in the entire game right now.
So, she's amazing. This is on the Halloween event. This is the first character I used my Dragon Eye on, was her, even though I used my very first Dragon Eye from campaign on Melia. And E2 Melia is good, and I still chose going for this one over her because I just think it's sick, just like you're saying. This is easily one of the best, like pretty much one Dragon Eye wonders in this game, where exclusive one extends the duration of crown immunity for to 3 turns, and Slivelle acts 1 extra turn after casting it. So it's already 40% attack increase for 2 turns on all allies is very rare. Let alone being able to go again on top of that. Usually it's like, for example, Mutu, where he gets the 40%, but everyone else gets 20%, and then he'll get an extra action turn. But then also, she doesn't need a build crit because she has this massive nuke here, and you already have crit taken care of for you, which is a massive deal for being able to build her. Maybe you want her fast. Maybe you want just a ton of crit damage for her. which is really sick. Sometimes in Tower of Mark, I'll build her with Leech, and it's actually really effective because you don't have to worry about that whole stat there to make her super unreliable. And then she also has the defense down 1 before getting Ben Austin or a Hoff, for example. I was using this a ton, and it makes a pretty big difference to be able to guarantee you don't need effective for this. So that's another thing she doesn't need. She's applying that plus, the defense down plus, crit. Super good character. But then what really made her shine, though, was this E1, though. I think this is one of the biggest boosts to a character, in my opinion. Even though she's already a good character, getting that E1 there makes her very good because you never don't have attack up 2 on your team.
Yeah, it's like you have one of the strongest single turret DPS here because you don't have to build crit on her at all. So you can just stack crit damage attack. I mean, you can build crit for the other stats and stuff or for the other pieces of attacks. But what's interesting about this is it's like when I'm looking at a team, there's so many characters I want to fit in. But when I have a character like this where it's like, okay, massive single turret damage. Oh, and I get the reduced defense and I get the attack up 2. It's like, wait a second. She fulfills like so many different roles in so many different places. Good for dungeons, good for guild boss, arguably the best or one of the best characters in guild boss to slot in. You have like bleeders, poisoners, or just single turret damage, like just such a good character.
Yeah, I would say the only one that really competes for her spot is Luna, in my opinion, in guild boss for the attack up. So it's like you're messing with like 2 characters there that can really compete, and especially with how guild boss scales, you really need to have this attack up because it's like bleeders are going to start to do really well. HP burners potentially could fall off a bit. A lot of HP burners like Melia still even benefit from the attack up as well because she just has a lot of raw damage anyway. So it's just like you're saying, like she's just so sick in every part of content. There is one potential drawback here with her is that when she goes twice, it is kind of hard to keep her alive. I noticed that in arena and in dungeons because she takes the 2 turns, she drops the shield off, so she makes herself vulnerable. Unless you make her so fast, she's faster than the Katherine, which is very tough to do because usually you want your Katherine as fast as possible, and getting a ton of crit damage and a lot of speed is very difficult. So that is one thing about these people like Melia, like Slivelle, that I have an issue with keeping alive because Katherine's my big character that keeps them alive, but they'll drop that shield off. That's one thing to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Now let's go on to the next character here. Here is one that's pretty interesting. We get a burn character. This one is going to be, I'm thinking maybe B for burn, maybe A tier. I think she's potentially a little slept on, in my opinion. But let's actually read her off and talk about this character. What do you think? What are your thoughts on her?
So, to me, the real big thing that I felt like was holding her back was the chances, right? On that second skill is like a big deal for me, and even on like the basic, right? But with the new information, I think she's a lot better than I had initially kind of thought of her. The problem I have is that it's not like she's doing anything super crazy. Like she's an AoE damage dealer with burn. Like that's all she does. And she doesn't have anything else. So I agree. Someone like B tier, A tier, definitely a solid AoE damage dealer, but I don't find that I want that oftentimes. So
yeah, I feel like this is the character you're like, oh, she's sick in the context of like Tower of Mark, or in the context of like you need a AoE character for Faction Abyss. So it's like these are not your premier characters you're going to really be looking for. Even though I do think this move here and 200% attack detonation damage to all enemies right here, like especially in combination with another burner, I bet can do a ton of damage. She would have the exclusive 1 potentially. I really don't think this is ever something I would ever put a Dragon Eye on, but she already has 90%. I think what's kind of holds her back is that her A2 only hits 3 people. So like you're in 2 of them are random, which is very kind of difficult to manage. And unless you just happen to have a really weird account where you happen to pull 2 of these people, I don't see you ever really getting the exclusive 1 here. So that's also potentially holding her back. Because I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, the exclusive 1 makes it so that that second skill is not random; it's an AOE. So you get basically 2 AOE burns. So
exactly,
it's like okay, I got 2 AOE burns, but she only applies 1 burn. So now you're like, okay, now I kind of
well, it is very rare to have 2 burns on 1 move. Only 2 characters do that, I believe. I believe it's only Gunnar and Bari. So it's like hard to kind of hold that against her, but at the same time, it just really shows. It kind of proves that she needs to be in this like B tier category because there's characters just objectively better, right?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. It's like if I'm gonna burn or build a burn character, I kind of need a burn team, which is like
Hmm.
not as good as like bleeds for value or something. In my opinion, that's where it kind of drops down. So I would say like B tier, maybe low A tier. You can argue, but I would say probably like a mid
Yeah,
B
I
tier
think
character.
she might kind of come back on exclusive too, because then she's increasing the damage. So on like a dedicated burn team, because she gets that 20% boost there, maybe she has a chance, but I think that's very niche. So let's move on. We got the young Hal 9000, the meme
This one,
himself.
this one to me is a quick one. To me, this is probably a D tier character.
Yeah, we're just throwing him in. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of, areas where you single target have to like tank for PvE in like dungeon or boss fights. So it's like, okay, well, the taunt's not really doing much for you. And then after that, he like just does stuff for himself. Like he only
mhm.
helps himself really. And I think that's the big problem is that he's like a tank that does minimal damage and he doesn't really prevent your other allies from getting hit. So it's like, okay, why would I use him?
Yeah, I feel like he's a character that is to pollute the pool, so there's worse legendaries potentially, and he's one of those characters that they use in PvE to like annoy you in make content harder. Like he makes it for like
Yep.
the controlled player. Like I noticed that a lot with the Waken, where it was like, oh yeah, this character is only really
Oh yeah, like
difficult if
Rickard.
yeah, like stuff like that where it's like blatantly obvious that it's like, okay, this character is super annoying if you jack up the HP to this character to the moon, like you would expect in hard PvE content. So yeah, I think that's straight to the D tier. Let's, be here all night if we break down every character like that. So here, let's Ellic here. Oh, okay, so hot takes,
Hot
baby.
take.
We got some hot takes coming up. So I feel like this character. Oh, and I believe you feel as well. We've talked about this. I think this character is getting a lot of credit that it might not necessarily deserve. So
Yeah,
especially
so
let's before people start typing, this is E1 Ellic, and I really don't think
mhm.
E1 Ellic warrants like super god tier status. I do think he's a good character. Don't get me wrong. I think this is gonna be. What are you thinking? B or I'm thinking A, maybe like bottom A tier. Um,
I would put him in probably high B tier. The thing that he's offering really, like if you just look at his kit, the thing that I think is unique about him is that he's transferring debuffs to himself.
mhm.
But when I see that, it's like, okay, if he's able to do that, I could see him have a little bit of value there. But everything else in his kit is really like subpar to me. Tenacity up doesn't really help you all the time. It's very inconsistent in PvE content. Increased defense really also doesn't help you a lot in a lot of areas because dots do a ton of damage to you, right? And that's mainly a lot of the damage that you're taking, or you're just getting
Oh,
absolutely one shot and the defense doesn't matter. Um, and then the consolidation too is one of the strongest buffs in the game. But again, if you're running Katherine, which everyone is literally running Katherine everywhere, you're going to overlap a lot of the times if you have like E3 Katherine, which isn't like at all something that's out of the ordinary for a lot
mhm.
of people. So I'm
Yeah.
just I would say that he's decent, and the thing that I would really like about him is the transferring debuffs aspect. So if you can get value out of that, he might be a little bit better.
I feel like he's more because like I can't really think of content where I really want the buffs transferred too much in PvE. Like because mainly for the most part is you want consistent, reliable survivability, and I don't think you get that with these kind of survivability buffs. If I didn't have Catherine, sure, and like Tower of Mark, you can really bump him up in usefulness because there's almost no one to fill his place. And obviously in Faction Abyss, he's going to be like God tier in Faction Abyss, God tier in Tower of Mark, because there's just no other options. Whereas in the game modes where you have Catherine, you're always just going to choose Catherine, and because Catherine's guaranteed on the count, you really need to compare him to Catherine and how he pairs with Catherine because pretty much everyone needs to be paired with her in some type of way. Completely agree with the tenacity. I've tested it a bit. It doesn't do much, and I believe people in PVE have about 30% crit rate. So you have a small change in their crit damage 30% of the time, which is not
Yep.
much. Like you're saying with defense up, which is a way better buff to be able to prevent damage than tenacity is, let alone the defense 2 version. And then it still doesn't really help with the the bleeds or the HP burns that you face in PvE, but at the same time he is kind of transferring to himself. I just feel like he's a character that in PvE, unless you have someone else like Katherine protecting him, he's just going to transfer all the buffs and then die. PvP, on the other hand, he's a big pain in the ass, and I think he's amazing. So it's still...
That's where I think the rating comes in for a lot of people, is like, people see like the crit damage reduction and the debuff transfer and the tenacity up and the consolidation. You're like, dang, if I'm fighting like a Naziel, Ellic, a Sindo comp where like I'm losing the first turn, and then after I miss the first turn, everyone's got their defensive buffs up. It's like, okay, this is like a annoying thing to deal with. But outside of that, I think he's a little overrated for sure. That's what I personally think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, because overrated from the context that people, I always see him in God tier. I always see him up here, and then I would be inclined to agree. The more exclusives you get, he does get better, and depending on the content, like there's going to be certain content where he's absolutely God tier, and certain content, like for overall general stuff that we're talking about, I'm thinking B tier. So maybe, you know what, I might go bottom A, and I'll move him kind of back here as we go. In my opinion.
There you go. So, appease the warriors down there in the comment section.
A little bit, just kind of in that range, So, okay. So now we got the next person here in May. We are on to the new faction. So
she, I find very interesting. Again, this has been like about a week and a half, 2 weeks since we did that collab about the effect hit and everything, and so I've had a lot of time to kind of experiment with that on my characters, and I'm finding that a lot of characters are a lot higher than I otherwise would have put. If you would have asked me, 2 weeks ago, where would I put May? I probably would have put her in like low B tier, maybe high C tier, to be honest. I don't like the inconsistency. She doesn't do a ton of damage. But if you ask me now, I would say she's maybe high B, mid A tier, something around there, because I really like the attack down 2. Like, it's attack down 2, and it's guaranteed. That's that's a huge thing, and you can pair her with a lot of people to get the constant AoE out from her if all the enemies have debuffs. Actually, I'm really high on her recently.
So I'm thinking you could build her 2 different ways now, because before it was like she weirdly hedged her bets for you kind of attacked in, you kind of horrify, but then you do potentially a lot of damage in a guild boss setting, in my opinion, because you have her passive popping off constantly where you do 120% attack damage to enemy targets with debuffs at the end of her turn. And then you also have a very strong A1. So if you pair her with Katherine and Guild Boss, I can see her doing decent damage. Like, she's definitely not going to be the top tier Guild Boss damage dealer. There's going to be a ton of people that beat her there. Maybe like, I'm thinking like 8 raw damage dealers there, but she has potential there. But then as a support, she's kind of interesting where you can kind of build her a pseudo damage dealer / support where you can guarantee the attack down. You can, I believe, guarantee the horrify. 40% chance. Okay, you can't guarantee the horrify, but you can at least guarantee the attack down, which is the important thing. AoE attack down, I think, is fantastic. I use that with Visly, but the issue holding her back is she's kind of dipping into 2 different worlds that take 2 different builds. And then when you ever hedge your bets in this game and you have like a character with like effect hit, kind of attack, kind of crit, you kind of want her to do damage, you kind of want her to CC people, I think that's a big problem and makes her, she's good, especially if you choose one or the other, but she's never going to be great. And there's definitely, so she deserves to be multiple tiers down, like you're saying. I'm thinking high B is where I'm putting her.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I completely agree with the idea that it's kind of multiple different builds, because to me, I personally, the way I would most likely use her is as an AoE attack down with some passive, like I call it fluff damage, where you just build some crit rate, build some crit damage on her, and then focus on effect hit, and then just get as much damage as you possibly can. Mid B tier, somewhere around there is exactly where I would put her. And I completely agree.
Okay. Ooh, Hisaro. Ooh, okay. So this guy,
yes.
I'm thinking, because we got E1 Hisaro, which is the one that can actually pop poisons. So in this situation, I'm thinking we're going at minimum A tier, in my opinion.
Yep. I go high A tier. I personally don't think he's good enough for S tier, but you could argue S tier. Like, the argument I could see for S tier is that he's an amazing character in terms of his single turret damage. He has that Hizania type exclusive one where you're detonating them. Additionally, keep in mind it says additionally, which means you still have the bleeds on them. That's a very important word. And then you actually have the guaranteed severe wound, and you're already building affected on them for the bleeds. So the severe wound actually is massive for Gwyneth, and he's probably my choice character, him and Thanatos, for Gwyneth. So it's like, okay, if you have like a number one pick for Gwyneth, and he's like amazing in Guild Boss, and he's amazing in Rum, and overall, I think that is an argument for S tier. But me personally, I find probably a high A tier because I do think he's probably a step down from like a Nid Rold, for example, if I'm comparing the two.
My argument was going to be S minus because of those things, because of how rare it is to be a character that's guaranteed for Gwyneth. Once you start to get to Gwyneth 26, because I tested it when I had Thanatos leveled, my account has gotten significantly better since then, so maybe that test is not valid. But I couldn't get a solo Thanatos to work against Gwyneth's 26. It just wasn't enough healing reduction, whereas Hisaro totally is. But now this is more current than I was then, so maybe definitely take that test with a grain of salt. But it's only a 40% reduction on the healing with Thanatos, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's enough because that's basically just severe wound 1, which is definitely not enough. So it's like I like Thanatos as a character, and he's like goated for Tower of Mark. But when it comes to Gwyneth, I just don't think he's a good character. I think the two main characters you're going to want are Lucifer and Hisaro. And the fact that it's that narrow of a thing, like, yes, you can argue Deschanel, but I didn't like her, even though people can make her work. But it's like you really have to make your team around her, and she doesn't provide much other than that. And the fact that people are willing to build a character for that and the only other character is a mythic character leads me to believe that it's like S minus. I'm okay with A plus, but this is an amazing character.
I'm on board with that argument, and combining the two, because you kind of want the severe wound, unless you are going pretty quick, but, to double up on turns so that they don't have that additional heal is kind of difficult in dungeons, I would say. So running like Hisaro plus Lucifer, and you're absolutely right. When you're considering like what characters do I want to run, it's Lucifer and Hisaro for the most part. And I feel like some people overrate the counters. Like they have knowledge from other gotchas. Like when you're running any other dungeon in another game, you're like, okay, what mechanic do they have? I need a character that counters that. In this game, you need multiple fulfilled because the stats are so high that you need a character that actually either provides something else on top of that. And I don't think someone like Deschanel does enough, even though she does have that turn meter boost and a little bit of healing. Like that's not enough on top of just the severe wound to make her like super good. Like I'd rather run Katherine, Hisaro, Lucifer. Boom, there's my 2 damage dealers, and then I can run double support after that or something like that. And I like that a lot more. So I actually I would agree with that S minus argument.
Okay, let's throw him in there, and then he'll be down here eventually. But we'll throw him here for now. Here, let's actually go back to the tier list here. So we got him right here in the S. Now we got this guy, I believe, Amalic or something. Or I think this guy, ever since that test with the guaranteeing of the debuffs, I think he's good. I think the argument against him though is just how good is the ability to AoE defense down and tenacity down. I feel like this is kind of like the reverse argument of Ellic, where it's like how good is defense up and tenacity up? Like, not that good. Whereas like being able to consistently provide defense down 2 and tenacity down 2 is great. I think more so great in arena potentially than it is in PvE content, unless somewhere down the line people can do like an AoE nuke with this, and that's actually useful in PvE in PvE. I just don't see that many situations where it is.
I agree. If you're thinking about like, let's say you consider dungeons, well, it's a 2-turn duration with a 4-turn cooldown, so you're really not having like all that much uptime, and then you have like problems where it's like, okay, let's say I have a Zia in there, she ults, and then for some reason the tenacity down, defense down go away by the time it comes back around. I feel like there's a lot of awkwardness. The thing that I would say is like, okay, how would I get this guy to work? Well, he needs to be a wave clear with another AoE DPS. And I feel like the stats are way too high for him to be like absolutely god tier right now. But I do think sometime in the future, we could end up in a scenario where Amalic is like one of the must-haves. Like I'm thinking, like for those of you that play Summoner's War, Galleon is someone like, oh, great in arena, and then later on in the game he becomes like a must-have, or was a must-have for like speedrunning dungeons. And I feel like Amalic could be in that same similar scenario. So to me, I would actually put high B tier, maybe low A tier right now.
Okay.
He's solid.
I'm happy with that. I think that's good. I think that's a good spot. He has potential. He's definitely a character to look out for because I think he's one of those people he has a very rare effect that's guaranteed that maybe down the line we'll really start to appreciate. So, but at the moment, he's definitely there. Amalic here is going to be in the B tier. Strong potential for the future. Maybe he goes to the moon. Maybe he kind of stays there. It's really going to depend on the content going forward, I think, because he has potential. Okay, so next character here, I believe it's Gramndi. This guy.
Gramndi?
Yeah. I think
AoE,
he's kind of...
freeze. AoE speed down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's this guy right here, I think. He's one of those characters that's just annoying to play against in PvE, but not great in normal stuff. It is nice that he's immune to freeze, so maybe... I can see some use in PvP because he has like two things. You get the speed down and you have freeze potential when he gets hit. That's really the only thing I can think of. He does have a pretty good A2. And then when he's exclusive wand, it's Gramndi is immune to death and restores self HP by 40% of max HP when taking fatal damage. Because he has a move that's kind of all about him getting hit and then making them frozen or them sped down from that. That's kind of a good synergistic exclusive there for something like that. But at the same time, I don't like anything reactive in this game. Like PvE, especially from a PvE side, it's just not good. It is kind of nice that it is when he takes direct damage, like he has a with enough effect hit guaranteed chance of speed, attacker speed by 20%. I don't like that because you have to let it stack multiple times, but if you're against a boss or against waves, you're taking too much damage. You're just going to die. So I think he's probably like C, maybe B tier, but this would change massively in PvP. I'm going to go C.
Yeah. I would say C as well. The freeze to me is like a moot point unless you're talking about wave control. And when you're talking about wave control, it's like, I mean, you have to like land the speed down and then the freeze unless you get the AoE out, which isn't technically a guaranteed chance, even if you increase the effect. So it's like, I don't know. When I'm looking at just wave controllers in this game, I really have a hard time believing in them because the boss fights are so hard, you need a lot of power. But this next character, I like this one a lot.
I'm going to go, this is a fantastic character, very good. I'm going to go high A. I think this guy deserves high A. He's fantastic and he unlocks a lot of content because Red Mark is very down bad when it comes to being able to remove shields. Very difficult to be able to find a character that does that, let alone a good one. Because I think the big thing about this character that like him and Lucifer share is being able to have the invis. On a nuker, having that invis makes him so much better. It's so frustrating to deal with. And so then there's that, plus being able to remove a shield, which is fantastic. So you have so much stuff going for this character. And then you do have the reduction to shield, which is very unique. So he's basically a Tower Mark specialist. If there was ever a character that's like absolute god tier in Tower Mark, it's Thanatos. I think this guy's so good for that. And that's pretty much it. Like, it's just, other than that, he's not the best damage dealer. So that's why I feel like he doesn't deserve that S tier status, is because his moves are just... He doesn't have any built-in crit rate or crit damage, and every single good damage dealer has some kind of form of that. And so that's where I kind of get off the S tier potential, but he does bring a lot to the table.
I agree, and I would say A tier. But what's cool about it is the reason why I would put him in A tier. Honestly, if I was being honest with myself, I'd probably put him in B tier without the exclusive one as a character. But his exclusive one, he's going to give himself crit damage, stacking. So he's going to get, that 75% crit damage, which is actually a big deal. And he starts to actually do meaningful damage, at least from what I've tested. So he turns into like a specialist for Tower Mark, into someone that I'm like, okay, I actually want him in like Tower of Mark. I want him in factions. And I also want him in like Gwyneth even. just to like passively reduce the healing on top of the severe wounds. If I just happen to not land the cooldowns or whatever, he's like guaranteed to always reduce the healing. So I don't know. I quite like this guy, and I think A tier is good.
Okay.
The newer character, though.
Yeah, so this guy, let's go back to that. So Tuck right here, E1. I'm gonna go S tier, especially the E1. I think he goes to the moon with exclusive 1. This guy's insane, and I think belongs here. What do you think?
Yeah, so you're going to get the AoE freeze, which is actually really nice for wave control. AoE freeze probably shouldn't be underestimated. I know I said like, oh, it's just wave clear. Like I'm hard on people that wave clear. But when you do something like that, and then you also increase max HP cap, you cleanse, and you go ahead and put shield on, that's when it starts to become like, wait a second. Now we have something working for us for boss fights too. S tier, oh man, that's probably a little high for me. I would say like A tier. But, the max HP cap is actually a big one because it's also increased the shielding for your Katherine, for your Wims, for your Lizzes. So, I haven't used them a crazy amount. So I'll say I'll accept the S tier here as someone that doesn't really have too much experience with them.
Yeah, and it will increase your damage or HP burners against bosses. So it's like you get that little throw in there, which is nice. And then I like the, obviously the freeze here, but I love the extra turn. Getting that because then that turns his shield and this part here into a 3-turn cooldown.
Yes.
So that right there, I think really makes it, because the 3-turn cooldown, I really like that number, especially for survivability. It's very hard to make like a main survivable character, like work on a 4-turn cooldown. Like you really feel it on your Liz if you don't have Wim to back her up or some other kind of support to back up Liz because she's on that 4-turn. It's brutal. And so he has another way because he has the damage mitigation. And then I think this HP cap up is so good. I would absolutely love to have this, but don't have him, so maybe I'm off base, but I really think this guy, especially at E1, is fantastic. So worst case in PvE, I'm going to go S-, but I think he deserves to be here. He definitely, as you get more and more exclusives on him, he's just going to keep getting better. But for this list, we're only doing E0 to E1. I think you kind of need him E1 for him to be in that S tier. I'd probably put him like bottom A without it. Kind of like how I would do Slivelle, where it's like Slivelle definitely drops a full tier without that exclusive 1.
Yeah, absolutely. This I'm excited about this next one because this is someone I just got recently. But I find that you can actually manipulate her with the AI and everything. She is really good for waves, and then when you get to the boss fights, like, what is she doing?
Yeah, useless. Yeah.
But you can actually turn off all of her skills and just go A1s for an attack down 20% and a defense down, small versions on both. And it's just guaranteed on basics. She's constantly applying attack down and defense down small versions, which I actually think is a pretty solid way to go. And I'll find that it's really good in faction and tower. So to me, she's like a B tier character. That's what I
put her. I was thinking like bottom A. Because it's like she's already like way better than all 3 of these characters here in B. But I'm down to put her like top of B.
Yeah. If I'm looking at these characters, I would probably combo May with Zyra. I probably would want Zyra over Anna. So I would probably just say more on the top side of B. Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's do that. Let's put her there for now. And then let's move on. Let's get this going. I'm thinking exclusive 1 Zian is probably either A tier or bottom of S, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. This is a character that I was so high on early, and the more I've used her, actually, the less I've liked her. It's kind of awkward, but I feel like she does a lot of damage, no doubt. But I don't feel like she really offers anything other than just the damage. And so for me, I'd probably put her high A tier. Is that crazy?
So I've gone full in on this character just to kind of show, really quick. I have her exclusive 3 on mine, and then she's like basically my main damage dealer. I use her literally everywhere. She's my main damage dealer for arena. Like anywhere you can possibly use Zia, I've been using her. And I feel like she's weird because it's like I don't regret the choice, but I can't help but comparing her to Lucifer, and she's garbage compared to Lucifer, but she's still amazing. So it's like Lucifer does her job so much better, and is and it's weird because like yes, she's still going to get used because she has the faction Abyss. She's in a different faction, but it's like if I had an E3 Lucifer or an E3 Zia, Lucifer is not only better, but in my opinion, significantly better. But you have to waste mythic shards, whereas I didn't have to do that. I can, get a Ben Austin there. So it's like when you see those two characters there, it's weird that a character can be so good but still outclassed so high by another character. Yeah, in my opinion, because she's still fantastic, especially when you get her further. I would say she's really gonna. I would put her probably S tier when she's E2, but I agree. I'm gonna go like the highest you can possibly go in A. Maybe I'll go S minus. I can't take her out of S, but she definitely is not like because there's so much moments of downtime, and you need Katherine, you need like a Ben Austin to make sure she's resetting her cooldowns. You really got to play around her to make her really shine, and she does, and she's good. And then there's also situations where you don't need raw damage. There's a lot of dungeons I just don't take raw damage. So it's like, okay, so I'm not taking her in any dungeons. I do like her in Tower Mark. I do like her in PvP, but it's like, like the more I think about it, the more how often I take her out of my team. I'm kind of thinking A tier.
Yeah, I'm having the problem where like I went with Lucia, and I'm sorry, Lucia just outclasses Zia by like twice the amount of damage because of the bleeds and ignoring defense. Zia just cannot compete, and Lucia has the piercing rate and all that stuff. So I'm finding that Zia is the first one to go, and so high A tier is kind of where I would put her on my account. I still use her, and she's still great, but for any like when I have to pick a 5, she's usually not in that 5.
Yeah. When you got her E2 and you got her E3, she's so sick because it's like she's resetting her ult. She's hitting all these AoEs. Like she gets so much better then. So it's like there's a lot of characters on here. Like for example, Melia and I don't know. There was another one here too that gets way better. But yeah, let's move on here. Let's go. I do think maybe we'll get some pushback there. But if you ever use her, and then also you got to build her. There's so many situations where she doesn't have full crit. So Sigmund, easy S. That's an easy S.
Yeah. I
S is for Sigmund.
Think he's a high S tier too.
Yeah.
Support, AoE HP burn. I mean, what else can you ask for? Like counterattack with HP burn. And here's an important fact. You can double counterattack with counterattack on Sigmund. So the counterattack from Katherine is not wasted. And that's a huge, huge thing to note because a lot of counterattacks don't work that way. And so you can double counterattack, shield, AoE HP burn. There's not really much else to say. He's just so good in every dungeon. Yeah,
so far I think he's the top of this list for S tier. Out of all the characters we got, he's not like the best character in the game, but out of all the characters we got here, he's just so sick. AoE, and then especially he gets even better. Like he's one of these characters, and this applies at E0. He's one of the few characters on this list that it's like I'll take him E0 and he's fantastic. And then it takes until about E2, E3 to where I really care about his exclusives again. But I think that just speaks to just how good he is that you can do that and not care. Because it's like I constantly take out Melia for him in teams because it's like I don't like micromanaging characters that go twice and drop their shield, whereas not only does he not do that, he actually is the reverse and is tankier because he takes less direct damage. He has a built-in AoE without needing to E2 her. So I think a very good character, and he's the right faction or the right affinity because he's Red Mark, and Red Mark pairs with Katherine, and it's just a lot easier to be able to build a team around that. Okay, Yoko here. I'm thinking high B. Maybe. No, I'm gonna go A. I'm gonna go A now that I think about it because we got E1 and she has a really good E1. So what do you think?
I actually just awakened 5 here and I've been using her a lot. I actually would be with you earlier on. I'd be like, yeah, low A tier, high B tier. But if I'm looking at her kit, like she actually, her ultimate gives her 40% more crit rate and 60% more crit damage. She has a 20% 20% crit damage bonus and 20% flat damage bonus in her basically her damage dealing mode. And the AI is smart. It stays in the damage dealing mode unless you're low on life and then swaps back. So
that's good to know. That's super good to know.
Way better, at least from what I found when I was running her on auto. And then so she doesn't swap into like the leech mode until she needs it. I found her to be really good. And honestly, if I was running like a Tower of Mark or faction on a low amount of people, I would take her over Zia any day. So they're kind of comparable, similar skill sets, similar damage. Until you start building a team around them is when I would say Zia's much better. Yeah, I would say mid A tier. Mid A tier is kind of where I'd put her. I've been really high on Yoko recently.
Okay. So, yeah, I just pulled her as well, and I've been wanting to build her, so like that's good news. So yeah, we'll throw her in the A tier with everyone here. I think that's definitely where she deserves to go. So here we go. Got her in the A tier. Now next we have Bari here. So this guy, especially at exclusive 1, because exclusive 1 is when he gets the ability to get more crit damage off his mastery. So that's another thing that really starts to ramp this guy up. And I think this guy's sick. Like, I don't know how sick yet, but definitely high A or S is going to be my opinion of this guy. We got the AoE. He double dips on his abilities here or on his stats because he's getting crit rate from his mastery. He has a ton of piercing rate. He attacks at a turn here with this that does 100% piercing rate. It also has crit damage. So it's like basically he's ignoring defense multiple times. He has this move here because he's doing the dot detonation, but it's 3 stages with a 80% chance or 70% chance for it to land on a 3 stage, which is hilarious because it's gonna, if there's already burns on there, it's gonna proc that and land burns again and proc that. So it's like crazy damage. Like Gunner would do crazy damage with just 2, let alone what Bari could do here. And then he starts popping off. He already has crit rate built in. He has crit damage potentially built in. And then the 5 bullets thing with his passive. Then he has a guaranteed, unlike Anna that needs an exclusive 1 just to get an AoE burn, he has it built in. Just, already off rip. He doesn't need an exclusive 1 to do that. So it's like he already has everything going. It's just an infinitely better character than Anna.
Yep, that's kind of, if I compare the two, and Anna's in B tier, like mid B tier, maybe mid high B tier. Bari's like mid to high A tier. The problem is, as I haven't built this guy, so I can't see how much damage burns are doing and his skills and everything. I'd have to kind of see with comparable stats to what I could acquire, kind of see the damage dealt. But actually,
I'm going ass. I think he's ass.
Ooh, you think he's ass? We're gonna have to drop some people from S tier. I think at the end of the video, we might be too hot taking here.
We might be too S. I'm putting him bottom of S. I think he's bottom of S. I think he's sick. I just pulled him. I'm gonna build him. Also, I think he's the best character in the game of using this set here. Let me go to it.
The thing that I like about Bari here is that if I were going to take an AoE DPS, he'd honestly probably be my number 1 choice.
Yeah,
I think
fearless
he's
set.
my number 1 choice.
Best fearless set user in the entire game because you get the crit rate, you get the mastery, you get the leech, and you get more crit rate off the mastery that you're getting from this. So it's hilarious.
Yeah, you know what? I can't see his damage, but I'm hopeful, and I'll say I can agree with that. S tier is fine with me. If I'm talking about him being the highest AoE DPS, then S tier seems right.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I'll be able to just nuke a wave with him in like stage 26, something along those lines.
You have to run your Naya in there.
Yeah. I'll have to get that. Well, I mean, he's ignoring so much defense that I don't think it's going to matter, right?
True. The burns are just gonna absolutely annihilate.
Yeah. If I just go Slivelle into that and then he just nukes it, I think that's a pretty good contender there. But I just pulled him, so it's give me 3 months and then I'll have him built, and then it'll be good to go. So
we're gonna go from Bari to Soli, man.
Yeah, it feels bad. I wanted him just because Sword Harbor Guards, and I wanted someone good for that. But it's like the character. He's just another reactionary character that I think is probably fantastic in PvP, being able to do that, but I just don't need this kind of stuff in PvE. Like, so PvP, potential god / he's probably not S tier in there, probably like A tier niche case scenarios in PvP, but for PvE scenarios, I don't see it being that useful.
I think ally protection is really bad in this game unless you're like this absurdly tanky character because you just die.
Yep.
It's not like other games. You just get one shot. Like if you're taking literally 3 characters worth of damage, assuming ally protection is what 50% damage absorption. It's like, okay, you're just gonna die. So to me, he's like a C tier character, possibly D tier. But I actually think he could be interesting for Guild Boss because he has defense down 2, and then eventually can have ally protection across everyone. So, maybe he's actually decent in Guild Boss, and that's the place where I think he could be very interesting. So, maybe maybe C.
Yeah, I think he did maybe B. You thinking low B?
Okay, yeah, I could see B. I could see B, to be honest.
Yeah, I just feel bad putting him in C with Gramndi and Valentin. I think he deserves better than that. I think he is. So, but let's move on. Okay, so we got
Katherine.
the young.
Do we really need to talk about this one that much?
Okay, no, we're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
This is a character where it's like, okay, you have to include the exclusive 3s. So, like,
especially she hits her stride at exclusive 1. At exclusive 1, she becomes an absolute unit. Everyone else should be multiple spots below, and then we'll go from there because it's like she's just it. There's not a single piece of content where you don't want her in there. You always put her in there. She's just too good, especially starting at exclusive 1 because it was a little annoying not having the cleanse. But once you get the cleanse, it's just like it's a wrap. Okay, next is going to be Luz. This guy, I don't know where to put this guy. This guy's going to be a little difficult to rate, in my opinion. I think he's good. He's unique for sure when it comes to how his damage is done because he has. Let's go to his ult. 200% attack damage to all enemies and deals extra damage. Caps at 200% of Luz's attack by 5% of the target's max HP. The skill has 50% more leech rate. And then 2 stages of damage to a single enemy. First stage deals 60% attack, reduces the target's defense by 60% for 2 turns. And then I do like that it's guaranteed. I like that it's guaranteed defense down.
And the problem I have with this guy is his passive. That's it. If his passive was extra crit rate without the HP loss, I would actually like that. Because you have to have HP loss, and it's just the target. And I imagine that's like the actual enemy. And it's like, okay, well, how are you going to build a PvE scenario where it's like you have to have them low to crit? I hate it. I hate the passive. If it was
backwards,
if it was just like guaranteed crit rate, I could see him being like S tier. But to me, he's like a low A, high B.
Yeah. I'll go high B. I think people might like him for progression because he has like the built-in leech and stuff. They're like, oh, he was really good. I liked him. But when you start to want more specialized stuff, I think he falls off, and I think B's where it's at.
Oh man, we have Melina next.
This one's hard to rate. I tried her out, but it wasn't a fair shake. And also, she makes me feel like I don't have good stats or I don't have good gear. You need to really invest in this character. And I feel like that's kind of an indictment on the character, that it's like, okay, well, if I really want to have good stats, I feel like by the time I have good stats, I'm still not going to like her because I have all these characters doing way more damage. It's like a never-ending thing. It's kind of my guess there because it's like she has the healing and then she has the healing based off her damage, but she doesn't have any built-in modifiers except this very slow building chivalry thing, which is kind of nice, but it's just like, I just don't think it's enough. I really don't think it's enough to warrant using her, in my opinion. Like, I think she's okay. I'm gonna go B.
Yeah, she's okay. Yeah, I would say if I were running in factions, she would be one of the. Honestly, if I was looking at the Sword Harbor guards, even though it's a stacked faction, I feel like if I had her, I'd try to use her. To be honest,
I tried it. I reverted her. Like I didn't have the
maybe B tier.
Yeah, I didn't have the books, and I feel like then she's green marked, and I don't have characters in green mark. So if you're like really green mark heavy, like let's say you went like you have Binos and you have Space, you have Hizanya, and you really double down on green mark, and then you can kind of shore up some of the issues there, then maybe she's good, but I don't think she warrants it. Like maybe she's sleeper OP when you have like nutty gear. But here let's move her on to the tier list here.
And we get
we go in B,
Sana
right?
next. Yeah, B tier. I would say maybe even mid to low B tier.
Yeah,
Sana's next.
Okay.
I've talked about her a little bit in a lot of videos. I actually like her as an AoE damage dealer, but I feel like she's someone that you want to pair with another AoE damage dealer, which is awkward because I don't want AoE damage dealers all that often.
Yeah.
Because her ultimate, you don't get the last part of it unless they're already at 50% HP, which means that a lot of her damage is kind of just mediocre. I mean, it's 3 stages of 80% of damage. That's like a 300% hit. Like if I compare that to Margarita straight up, like I'd honestly just rather have Margarita E1 any day of the week. But maybe I'm too harsh on her because her exclusive wand is 25% piercing rate, period, on crit damage. So maybe she gets a lot better from that area, and she has that extra turn meter. I don't know, maybe like a high B, low A. If I'm gonna put Margarita in A tier or B tier, then I'd probably put Sana in the same position.
Well, she seems counterintuitive because she's an AoE nuking character, but she scales. Why would you ever want stacking scaling on an AoE nuker? It just doesn't work. So if you're putting Margarita there, like I'll put her right there. Like if I saw the B tier, if it was organized correctly, Margarita would be like near the top, she would be near the bottom because it's like Margarita at E1 is just infinitely better. But it's like, and it's not an indictment on the characters; it's an indictment on the content that doesn't need these things. Like we don't value what they bring to the table, even though they do what they bring to the table well. So don't get that twisted. Comment section. I'm talking to them specifically here.
Nasakhma is after the Sana, so we're going low B tier Sana.
Okay, if there was like a Tower of Mark section, like let's say Tower of Mark section, boom, he's there. But in PvE, like he's just C tier. Like he's complete trash in anything except Tower of Mark. It's like the Tower of Mark exception, then he's like literally goated. In arena, he's goated. In a lot of he's really annoying. I think he's like the god tier of like not normal arena, but like the triples arena. Because it's like when you remove the absolute best characters, then he like super shines as like this super busted character, you know? So it's like that's where I think he's like super good. Tower of Mark and then like the triples arena.
Yep. I would put him D tier if it wasn't for Tower of Mark. That's what it is. So pretty simple one for me.
Yeah, let's go on the next one. Okay, Hertha here. So this one is tough for me to. I feel like I need to see this character to really understand just how good she is. Maybe she's like this goated, sick bleed character, but it's hard for me to. Her kit is so different that it's really hard for me to put into perspective just how good she is as a damage dealer.
So what I like about her is if you look at her skill, if we like Nid Rold a lot, then I would say that that you actually might like Hertha a decent amount because some of her basic actually can have some of her damage considered as bleed damage, which means that it ignores defense entirely. Now, I'm not sure how good she is in general. Her multipliers are very low. She doesn't land a ton of bleeds. And I don't know. I mean, if you look here, her ultimate is like 2 stages of attack to a single enemy, each of which deals 100% attack damage and 200% bleed damage, which means that her ultimate is actually smacking for massive amounts if that's ignoring defense. So maybe she's a lot better than we're thinking. I just haven't seen her in play, so it's hard for me to really say.
And also, it's very hard to evaluate how good this speed up. She's constantly giving herself more speed, which is one of those things that you gain the benefits of like 2 turns in. You know, it's like as you're doing it, you're constantly boosting your speed. So then over time, you're getting that. Whereas like the obvious stuff like space where you get that boost, you're like, okay, I see the difference. I'm now going first when I wouldn't have. Whereas she's going to start to go first and overtake people and might get a couple turns in against other characters. And I've never liked the wording of like casting skills proactively in this game.
Yeah. I don't know. Chance. Maybe like E or low A.
I'll go low A. I think she's low A. I think she's definitely low A. Like when it comes to the bleed characters, a lot of them need to be paired with another bleed. Like they really kind of synergize well. So it's there's that as for bosses in PvE. Like I can totally see myself taking her in because I do like the stealth on her A2 with 100% chance to land a bleed. And then, she has a pretty good chance on her 2 stages on her basic with the passive and being able to just do bleed damage like normal. I've been really liking characters that just do like HP burn damage, like Quinlan or like Nid Rold, stuff like that. So she has something similar. I think that's a really big benefit going her way.
Yeah.
So then
Slackdo is the next one. And to me, I actually find him, I find him one of the better AoE damage dealers, but I don't like them. But at E1, he turns from a C or B tier character to a guaranteed B tier character because his second skill removes attribute buffs normally, which doesn't count for shields, as far as I know. Whereas his E1 removes all buffs. So that changes it from can't use him in Tower Mark to really good in Tower Mark. And I think that warrants a B tier category.
I feel like he's kind of in the same boat as Nasakhma, because it's like how we rated Nasakhma, he's basically the same thing, because it's like maybe a little better than Nasakhma because he does have the AoE damage.
That's kind of where I'm going. I mean, he has the extra direct damage when they have no attribute buffs, which is like a 40% damage increase. He actually does a decent amount of AoE damage. It's just that it's not the best, which puts him lower on the list. But now he has a second use. So now I'm thinking, okay, he actually is really good for Tower of Mark. He's actually decent for faction as well. Like if I had him and I'm looking at the Sunset Sages faction, he's probably one that I would put in my comp. Like the Sunset Sages is pretty bad.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd probably put him in my comp.
So are we thinking, I'm thinking B. I'm thinking he's a B tier. Yeah.
B tier for me as well.
PvP, if you had an E3 PvP, he's like better than Margarita. But, for this list, I think B tier is perfect. Okay. So then we got, we have Horus over here. So this guy, I'm not a fan of this guy, especially E1 level. Like I'd put this guy C tier, to be honest. I think he's kind of trash. People would be like, oh, he's like, he's actually kind of good. But it's like, he doesn't bring anything to the table. He has no modifiers for his damage. He does bring something very unique, being able to remove a shield. But like, he's like a weird hedging of the bets between single target and AoE, and doesn't do either of them well. So it's like, where do you bring this guy? What is he useful for? So you have this move here. You have, yes, he has the crit damage here, but you still need crit rate, and that's really hard to get. It's super hard to get 100% crit rate in this game. So he has one shot to do a big landing move here, and that's all he does. And then he has, 180% damage auto attack. That's about it. And then a very bad AoE move here. Yes, when they're below, but then it's not even about like the damage. It's about not even caring about an AoE move. Who cares? So that's why.
Yeah, another issue with him is his base attack is one of the slightly above average, which is bad considering there's a lot of other characters that are much better when you're looking at like just strict nukers. If I think he's probably not good at or bad enough for C tier. I think he does do a decent amount of damage. I just don't like the severe wound. I think that you're really reliant on his ultimate for a single target hit. And the leech actually does come into play sometimes. So I would say maybe low B tier is kind of where I put him.
All right. I'll put him low B. It's just like when I
Some
look
people
at
are really high on this guy though. I don't get it.
Why though? What do they
I
see?
Don't get it.
They have E3 and then they don't. Then it's like, okay, yeah, I see it because you remove the thing. But it's like, all right, I think also maybe in campaign, like for example, he could be good because he just one shot someone. Maybe they like him there, and then it was like really helpful for them for progression. But it's like in dungeons and stuff.
Leeching back up.
Oh, wait. Am I forgetting? Okay, hold on. Am I completely forgetting the severe wound? Does he have severe wound?
He has inferior severe wound.
Oh, okay.
If you're below 50% HP, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
It's double conditional. It's a bad buff and conditional, so it's like okay.
Okay, yeah, doesn't count. All right. Okay, so next hero on the list we have Elbek. Okay, I was super high on this guy. I am now lower on this guy, but I do think he's kind of good. I'm going to go with a B tier, and I only have him E0. So E1, he can be pretty good potentially. I think I need to kind of work it out. Maybe I can figure out how to make him good. But the reason why I'm thinking B tier is he's just a big meat shield. And yes, he provides a shield like Whim, for example, on a 3-turn cooldown. And then he also has damage and stuff, but it's just not enough. The nice thing about Whim is that he has the passive shielding. He has Consolidation 1. He provides a lot to the team. He does provide a lot of damage here that I do like. And I haven't tried this yet, but I think he potentially, in Elbek here, could be one of the better people of Recovery Horn Aura, because he's getting that scaling health. So then that big percentage, like 9% of 1.5 million life, could actually be kind of hilarious as he's doing this. And at E1, he has the best version of Ally Protect you can get, because you know how you're saying Ally Protect, you just die, whereas he's the only character that finally gives people Immortal as he's doing Ally Protection. So it's like when he gets E1, he might actually be really good. It's just I haven't really tried it yet. And any other character I've used with Ally Protection just is terrible. Like Gru, anyone that has it, it's just a death sentence for yourself.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat. I would say like he has the damage reduction on passive. He has the with 16%, which is actually, it helps him out when you're ally protecting. He has the immortal. He has the shield, and then he actually does reasonable damage, which a lot of these ally protects don't. So yeah, B tier is probably where I'd put him, considering that ally protect is. It's good, but I don't know how often you'd have him end up dying even after the fact, because he will be at 0% HP when he's done with the ally protect. So you have to make sure he survives after that, and that could be dangerous. So
yeah, so I think B tier is the perfect spot for him. We'll throw him right there. Okay, so now we got Guhanna here. I'm thinking she's an A. I think she's A.
Maybe this is okay. I have a hot take. I think she is comparable to Space and an S tier character. The reason?
Okay. I think you're right. I think I understand.
So you have the max HP increase, turn meter increase, and ally attack increase. Okay. The debuff cleanse, which is pretty big on a lot of the characters. Then you're going to have 8%, actually 12% direct damage reduction for your whole team. Okay.
Which is sick, yeah.
That's amazing. And the second thing, or second skill, is speed down 2 for the enemies and speed up 1 for your allies. I actually am pretty high on her. I would say S tier. I actually really like this character.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that's right. And you cleanse 5 layers of debuffs with exclusive 1. So it's like, she just keeps getting better. It's an easy S tier. Yeah, that's it. You're completely right. Okay, Walter. See, this guy's one of those synergy guys, amazing character, but it's like you need poisoners. So this is a conditional, like if we were really getting in with this tier list, it would be like A tier, but then you put like an arrow and it's like with poisoners, he's now S tier kind of thing. So it's like, I think that's kind of like a fair way to put him on here. Like you definitely need the context, but he's amazing.
Yeah, the question I'd have is he could actually be S tier depending on how this exclusive works. Because it says, meanwhile, reduces the direct damage dealt by any target under poison by 20%. So if that just works, not just on himself, but your whole team, he's getting 20% damage reduction for your whole team, while also doing really good damage in his poisons and having a lot of survivability. Actually could be really good. But I still think that maybe he's not even S tier even with that, because his kit really doesn't work unless you have another poisoner in there. So, high A tier with exclusive 1 if it works with how I'm thinking. If it only works for himself, mid to low A tier.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, but that exclusive, if it works as what you're saying there, reduces direct damage by any target under poison, like that alone, that's so much better than like so many other characters that we rate highly because of what they can do with like an attack down 2 or like something along those lines. Just throwing the poison, because it's proactive. I love that, being able to do the damage, and you already have the built-in new effect of poison to reduce the damage. Then you have another flat percentage here of the 20%, which everyone's going to get so much more survivable. So completely agree. All right, so I think a tentative A tier with potential to go up to S, even without the conditional of needing other poisoners.
So I have an interesting take on Alahan. I am so like adverse to this character. I don't think he's very good. But then when I said that, people were like, no, you're so wrong. This guy is absolutely insane. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Because what I'm seeing here is the removal of shield. Okay, amazing for Tower of Mark. But keep in mind, force is one of those, the only attribute or the only mark where you have like a million people that can reduce shield or remove the shield. There's actually
fair.
quite a few people. And a million is an exaggeration, but the force is definitely one of those marks where it's like, okay, you have probably the most characters that can remove the shields, especially the rare, if you guys are just looking to get through 24 for the first time. The thing that people were saying is that the second ability, equalizing the HP, I hate this ability. I think that it's way overrated. I do not like heals when we're talking about high dungeon stages or factions or tower. You just die. And unless you get a really good timing of this, you're going to die anyways. I don't know. To me,
It's a win
he has
more.
really good utility. He's like a C, B tier character. It's kind of where I'm placing. Probably better than a Nasakhma, so probably B.
Yeah. I do like that he's unique in the sense that he's removing the layer up the auto attack. That is putting him as a better version of something that this faction does a lot of. So he deserves some clout for that, but I completely agree that this is like a win more ability where it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day unless you had that shield to begin with. So it's like, completely agree with all that. And then, yeah, it's just the restoring of stuff. The damage is too high. You get one shot. Who cares if you can make sure everyone's topped off at 100%, but with no shield and no attack down, you're done. So I think the B is the way to go. So Timi here, this guy, I feel like he's in the same boat as a lot of these characters, where when it comes to the force mark character, unlike the previous character, where being able to remove a shield is not a big deal, red mark, people really like it. You need E1 to be able to even do it in the first place. I think that kind of bumps him up. I think he's going to be a B tier character in Timi. Nothing too crazy when it comes to this guy. Do you have any kind of insight or anything extra you would like to add when it comes to Timi here?
I honestly hate the way this game is set up in terms of Tower of Mark. The fact that we have to rate some of these characters higher, at least in my opinion, I think that you have to rate some of these characters higher because they offer something that's so rare. For example, if you just look at the red mark, there's like 4 characters in the entire game that remove shields, and they're all legendary. So it's like, okay, well, you can't put him in F or D tier, even though like some of the abilities aren't that good. Even though I don't think he warrants a D tier, I think that it would honestly be a C tier if you had a lot of epics that could do his job. But because you don't, you need him in B tier, which is really awkward. I think that he offers that attack down too, but it is a low chance. But you do have that 5 turns, so
I think he's easily one of the best. Like, this is one of the characters I'm most excited to get. If I was trying to take on Nameless Brotherhood Faction Abyss, this guy is absolutely incredible for something like that, because it's having the crit down 2 and the attack down 2 combination. Yes, you only have 32% times 5, in that scenario. I think that's a fantastic ability to against bosses, like to really make sure you survive. I think it's going to cover all the crit rate. I don't think they're going to be able to crit unless they have like you have the person on the left dead, a carry dead, to boost their crit rate up even more. So I think he's like the boss killer. He's removing the shields. He has on his auto attack speed down 2, and then on his ultimate, he has the potential of doing attack down 2 and crit rate 2. So it's like, I think B tier is still where he's at, but he's going to be one of the most necessary people for Faction Abyss.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's there really isn't much more to be said about him. Just he's solid. Now, Eric, this guy,
I think he's good.
I actually think he's kind of solid. I really like the passive here. That's what I really like about him. He goes ahead and he pursues when he has those bombs, and he has the guaranteed burns, the guaranteed defense down in a lot of scenarios. Really, really solid, actually.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, that's pretty much what a surprising amount of stuff he's bringing to the table here. I really like the defense down 2. It is a little counterintuitive to have burn with defense down 2, but at the same time, I do like that he's able to provide it on a guaranteed rate, potentially with enough effect hit. He is really frustrating to deal with in PvE scenarios like campaign. This is one of the big problems, like pushing campaign. So that's where he kind of clued into watching out for this character. But if I was trying to run him, I feel like these are good things. It's just not necessarily in much PvE content. Like I would appreciate having this kind of stuff, but it's like kind of like the other characters on the list here with like Almac, some of the AoE damage dealers. He's providing things that are good, but it's just not that necessary. So it's like I think B tier is probably where he belongs.
Waves are what I'd like him for. He actually has some guaranteed stun mechanics if you have some burn characters going, which is actually really nice. So definitely B tier.
Okay, I think this is an
though.
easy. I think this is an easy D, right? I think this is just. He's just not that useful.
He is just pretty bad. Yeah. He has some big smacks, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is like he's literally just he's just kind of mediocre when it comes to just big smacking because he just offers that. And he doesn't die or he's not that easy to kill. But I just don't think that that's good enough. Like I don't think it's good enough just to have one big smack and then have some aversion to death. You need some other multiplier or something to offer.
Yeah, it's not doing well against bosses. It's not enough against waves. So he basically is useless in both scenarios. So I think he deserves to be down there. So then next we have, I think this chick is super underrated. I think she's amazing, and she actually revives. You know, she can revive multiple people. She's like the only person in the game that can revive multiple people. So it's like a crazy ultimate here in being able to do that. That alone is sick.
That is why I like her. And the important part about her is that not only is she going to revive, the only thing is I actually don't know if the immortal buff applies to the revived allies. But regardless, it's going to apply to herself, which is important because she's reducing her own HP to revive. That's not a problem because she has that immortal, so she's oftentimes will never die from this. As long as you have the right team comp set up with a couple supports with some heals in there. I actually really like her as well. I think revives are super powerful, which is one of the reasons why Luna is as good as she is.
Yeah, Luna does it with like everything. Like she has the cleansing, she has the attack down, she has the attack up. This one is just here. How about we make the reviving portion the best portion and make that better? Because it's like if it wasn't better, then I don't think she would. It's just like Luna's just infinitely better, and the gap is too wide. Whereas her being able to revive multiple people, she has the attack down on her auto attack, stuff like that. So I think she's providing enough to slip into A tier in my opinion, because it's like that's the only one, and it's actually good. Like I can imagine that really adding consistency to people's dungeon runs on auto. I was like, okay, she's in there, she's helping people out. She has the immortal. Like immortal's fantastic. Just like let's say she doesn't revive anyone, like you have it set up for that, but just having the more immortal alone really adds to the consistency, kind of like how Nordak does things for your runs. But I think Aisha, I think she's absolutely dog. I think this character is like
she's trash.
I think she's like I think she's in here. I don't have the heart for D tier, but it's like what does she bring that I would ever really want?
I agree. Exclusive 1 is absolute, like it's kind of mediocre. She gets the fatal damage prevention. But to be honest, like if she's already in the scenario where she's going to get that, she's probably going to die again, which means that, I don't like that. A lot of people are like, oh, the fatal damage prevention. The only time I like that is in PvP generally because that'll win you the game. Whereas in PvE, you need that consistency. So if it's already happening, it could probably happen again. And her damage numbers are just too low. She does do all AoEs, right?
Yep.
Her second skill is that single target, but she has the AoE basic, which is interesting, but just not good enough. And one thing that's really important to note here, I charted all the base attacks. She has a below average base attack, which is really harming her damage.
Like by a lot. Like Melia has 400 more base attack. So it's like she has low base attack, she has low modifiers, and she has no way of increasing like naturally increasing her crit rate and crit damage like all other good damage dealers do. So it's like, and she's already nerfing her damage because she's all AoE. So it's like always naturally going to be lower modifiers too. So it's like every single possible scenario is making it to where she's not going to do enough.
To me, it's a low C tier. Definitely worse than Nasakhma, because I feel like she does have a use, which is faction, because I do think you could potentially use her in there, and that's it. So maybe even high D tier, I could see it, but low C tier for sure.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. So then let's go Sinton here. What do you think of this guy?
Ooh, so I love the fact that he's counterattacking all the time when he's taking damage, similar to Melia. Problem I find is that I don't really like provokes. The games just has too much damage, and I think that you can actually just die even if you have provokes on people. And the exclusive one really doesn't do anything. It's just going to give him some debuff resistance and some cleansing of himself, not your whole team. So to me, he's a good campaign carry, good at PvP, but PvP is not considered. So to me, maybe even C tier or
I'll go C.
low B tier.
I'll go C. He's a really annoying to face in PvE because he has such high stats, but it's like that's just not enough to like when we are piloting him, he's gonna feel way worse than how he feels against in PvE. So it's like I'm definitely thinking like C. He just doesn't provide enough. I'm used to like raid. There's a character in Agnar that does AoE provoke guaranteed on all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown. Yeah, and then you don't get one shot. So it's like it's weird to see a game where it's like this character defense based counterattacks constantly, but Agnar does the same thing in an AoE. He's used a ton, whereas this guy just can do it to one character in this game. So it's surprising that they do that. So now we got like Frich or Fitch.
I don't know about this guy. So
I was looking at him. I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, he doesn't have the guaranteed attack down, which is unfortunate. He has the self taunt and shield. I hate that. I absolutely hate people that only affect themselves. He has the defense damage to all enemies. The attack down is the only redeeming factor for him, but it's not guaranteed. I don't know. He's definitely C tier for me. I think that he's a C tier.
If bosses were single target, but most bosses that are scary have these massive nukes that are AoE, so it's like, who cares? Okay, you get to the boss and you're just screwed. Maybe something you'd be like, this is just not a PvE character in my opinion. You have with a 20% chance to provoke. How can you imagine like relying on that?
Yep. If you could give a shield to everyone, this could be a B tier character for sure. But the problem is it's like only for himself. I don't care if you're only increasing yourself's tankiness. Your rest of your team's gonna die. So me, C tier.
Like a taunt, like if it was like a 3-turn taunt, he increased his HP by 50%, gave himself a 60% shield, then I would consider it maybe because it's like he might actually survive. But I wouldn't even be convinced he would survive in like Dungeon 28 with all defensive stats, and he still gave himself that. Like that's how hard these people hit, unless you like combine them with like a Nordak or something like that. So it's like it's just not enough. So yeah, what are we thinking? We thinking D or C?
B. I would say C. I like the attack down too on an AoE. That could potentially become useful for faction. It's the only redeeming factor.
C it is.
But Mutu is actually someone I really like. I like people that give themselves extra turns. Extra turns to me are always like, ooh, let me take another look at this character. And when he's always going to give himself that extra attack up, he has built-in leech. His basics are smacking, guys. And especially in werewolf form, he's going to get extra percentage damage dealt, stacking with the high multipliers and above average base attack. His ultimate, though, absolutely smacks. It does so much damage. I think it's the hardest hitting smack, maybe right behind Lucifer in terms of just strict damage dealt because of his massive damage dealt increase from his passive, maybe comparable to Zia potentially actually.
Okay, so we're looking at 14. What is it? 14, 70, 20% extra damage on a very high modifier for 470. So we're looking at what 940.
Yeah, 940.
Yeah, what? 940 and then
And you have
times a
to
0.12, so yeah, you're looking at basically Lucifer level modifiers, but the issue though is that he has no steroid on a crit rate or a crit damage. So it's like he has 70% extra crit damage when he's doing that. So it's like, holy crap, he hits like a truck. Whereas with this guy, I'm not seeing that. I mean, yes, I think he's very good, and I completely agree with all those things you said. I think he's a great support direct damage dealer. Like if you have bleeds or if you have other direct damage characters against the guild boss, I think this guy's amazing for something like that. If you don't have Slivelle, everyone's guaranteed to at least get one copy of this guy. Like I think he's legitimately a good character. He has one of the, especially paired with Katherine, a 400% attack damage auto attack is hilarious. Like that's one of the highest modifiers in the entire game. And I do like that they give him the modifiers when he doesn't give himself the crit rate. A lot of people have like low modifiers and no crit rate or crit damage buff, so they just don't hit hard at all. I think you can make this guy hit hard. So I'm a fan of him. I'm thinking like bottom A. In my
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. The thing I like about him is the attack up for everyone with the extra turn. You're basically permanently giving him everyone extra attack up because it's 3-turn cooldown with 2 turns active. So to me, this guy, when I get him, he's an auto build out, auto slot into my guild boss comp for my extra bleed and single turret damage. So I'm excited about him.
Yeah, I think he's great. And I really like that you don't need an exclusive to make him go again. So it's like if you had a Slivelle and this guy on your team would know you're never going to Dragon Eye him or exclusive him, I'd pick him. I'd pick him over Slivelle because that's one thing I like about his ult. It's on a 3-turn cooldown essentially. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have Elena. Now, this is a character that, honestly, I had to take a double take because you were like, I'm really high on her. And I was like, what? So I had to go back. She's got the removal of all buffs, Tower Mark, reduction of speed 40%. She's got the restoration of HP, the attribute debuffs. I think she's quite solid because, oh man, I don't know if she's S tier though. You really are high on her though.
Okay, so guaranteed reduction. She has a guaranteed speed down 2 on an AoE.
Yep.
She can, defense down 2 as well if you're not transferring anything. This part here, I really like the crit damage reduction because it's a 26% crit damage reduction. Anytime I actually die is due to a random crit. So being able to reduce that much of it is good. And then she has a lackluster heal. So it's like she's like a great support to someone like I would replace like a space with her. You definitely need a Katherine. You want to have like, especially you're going to appreciate her more like when Katherine gets to E3 because you can kind of get away with a little bit more because right now, if you don't have her E3, then you're doing it on a 4-turn cooldown. So you really want to like combine her with like a whim or something like that. Whereas once you have her E3, then it's like a 3-turn cooldown. So it's like, you still want to have more support, which she's providing, but at the same time, you don't need as much. So like, that's why I really like her. And then the combination of being able to handle 2 things or guaranteed removing of all buffs and the speed down together like that, I think is insane. It is kind of unfortunate it's on a 4-turn cooldown, but I think worst case scenario, I'd probably put her high A. And then maybe she deserves the God tier status at exclusive 3. I would totally understand that. If you wanted to kind of drop her down because she's only exclusive 1 and she might not do enough just yet. Because especially at exclusive 2 and especially at exclusive 3, she just keeps getting better. So I'd be okay with like high A for now. To kind of.
I would say this is the one I probably disagree with you the most. I would say, I honestly, I haven't used her, so I can't really say, but I'm looking at my team and I'm like, who would I replace with her? I don't think she's bad at all. I think she definitely has like Tower Mark auto include, right? 100%. Amazing for factions. I could absolutely see that as well. The thing is, like, if I'm looking for dungeons, speed down 2, the question is how valuable will that be? I think it's actually very valuable to me.
I think it's one of the best debuffs.
A tier. So I will leave you to decide. I would put her in mid A tier. Is probably what I would end up. So.
I try to take an average of it. So it's like I was kind of thinking because it's only exclusive 1, I was kind of talking myself down to an S minus. You're thinking an A. Let's put her in A. So, but definitely God tier if it's exclusive 2 and 3, in my opinion.
Exclusive 2 is absolutely bonkers, guys.
Yeah.
Actually bonkers. All right, Olga. Oh man, I
don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Her. I
think she's
so. Like her.
like where is she ever going to be used? This is the most bizarre kid in the game. Like, so just to kind of let's just quickly go over this, because I think this is one of those weird characters that I feel like maybe if we could build up characters a little easier, we could like try her out and see where she's good. But it's just never going to happen, because she has like 4 stages of attack, 100% attack. First 3 stages reduce the target's turn meter, but then the fourth one silences. When would you ever need that? Because
if you look at the numbers there, just look at the numbers for a second. Look at 445 or a 45% increase from the attack. So we have 145 times 4. That's not a lot of damage when you compare it to those other single target hitters. And she has no other like extra damage, like no other crit rate, crit damage, or attack buffs to herself. Already, I'm like, okay, she's not going to do a lot of damage. Already, that's what I'm thinking.
That's
so
like her main move. Like, she does 100% less attack damage than Mutu's A1, to give like some context, because we just talked about him. Target has an attribute debuff, additionally increases 25% of the damage. As the target is under control status, additionally by 50% more. So it's like this auto attack in those situations, but it's like she's like a wave character. So in like she might be, she's not even like objectively this amazing character at dealing with waves. She's like only okay at it, assuming you have like a Zyra to make her kind of pop off, but her pop off is really not that great, except being able to pursue and attack enemies. So she essentially, her AoE is like the version of her pursuing and attacking, but it's like that's really all she's doing, and it's just an auto attack that's doing extra damage against CC. Like, it's not like, that's how I see her. Zyra comes in, CC's everyone, she comes in and auto attacks everyone that was CC'd, right? But she doesn't give herself any crit rate or crit damage, so it's like she's gonna hit like a noodle, in my opinion. Like, maybe a little higher than a noodle, but like I just don't see it as anywhere close to good enough. I am kind of like thinking about it, like talking myself a little bit into her.
The thing I think her one strength is her passive, right? She's gonna have the what is this, 3-6, we're gonna have 12%, so a 30% chance to pursue whenever an ally casts skills that deal damage proactively. Keep in mind, this is a skill, okay? So it's not basic, is from what I understand of this. Yep. And if that's the case, that's not a ton of times. However, if I'm looking like guild boss or something, you know, you might get a couple of hits there. The problem is like, if I'm including, let's say she's lucky with the pursues and she's doing all that damage, is she even comparable to someone in like the B tier? Like, am I going to compare her to Zano or Luz even? Probably not. I think she's bottom B tier, C tier.
Like, imagine, okay, so let's steelman argument her. I feel like the best thing she got going for her is she would, you have like an Ascendo. Ascendo comes in, silences everyone, then she comes in and does her A2 and grants herself damage immunity and control immunity, and then pursues and attacks one enemy's under control status one time. So she goes in, but then it's 1, 2, 3, so 4 enemies on a 3-turn cooldown, and she's hitting with her auto attack that is a 300% damage modifier, and then 50% extra damage if it's under control status. So 450% attack, which is more than Mutu's attack. So it's essentially a 400% AoE move, which is actually pretty high. That's a pretty big, imagine like a 400% modifier, 450% attack modifier as an AoE. That's pretty good, right? In that one hypothetical scenario where you need to have some other control person, like let's say you had Tuck, or you had Zyra, or you had Ascendo, that could be kind of good, right? And then on the boss, you get a lot of turn meter reduction. It's weird that you got the silence on there. Like, I think that's not great, but there might be something there.
You're right. The turn meter reduction is usually reduced by 75%, so I don't normally care about that all that much. But you're right about the pursuing when you have an AoE control effect. The problem is like that only works for waves. So, you know, you talked me up a little bit here. I mean, you're right. If you're able to combo the character together, you can get some decent stuff. But now we're talking, okay, now you need a second character. And is the value you're getting from that even comparable to someone in the A tier? Probably not. So B tier?
Yeah, I think it's just it's a weird synergy that is good, but it takes too much to make work, and it takes the other character to do the thing, and it's not like always guaranteed to be useful. So it's like, I think B tier is fair. I think that's a fair place to put this character. So
Ooh, but Fiona, I
Ooh,
actually really, really like Fiona. So,
I'm thinking S.
um, you
She,
say S. Yeah, honestly, I kind of agree with this. And she's got that like she has the Seal of the Drakes passive where she heals if you have her in the round long enough, which is very, very possible. And then also what's interesting about this is
immune to control.
the wording on it is off. It's actually a revive.
Mm. What part is off?
Yeah, so from what I understand, I haven't tested her in a long time, but this second skill, it says if the target is killed, revives the target. So you can see she actually got her ability rewarded. So not if the target's killed, it's going to revive the target. So she has a revive with attack up or max HP heal based on her max HP and the stealth, which I really like. I love
Mm-hmm.
the revives in this game. 3-turn cooldown on a revive is so good.
Yep.
Um, I just love that aspect. That's what makes her S tier to
She's so
me.
good. Yeah, she's definitely one of the characters I want to pull. And then she has a not a guaranteed chance to stun, but the fact that she can AoE stun, hilarious. It's just such a good combination. She's amazing pretty much everywhere. You know, where it's like hard content and you're trying to push. This character's great. Like I think she'd benefit from, you know, pretty much any team. Only unfortunate thing is probably her auto attack. Increases target's attack. Um, she doesn't really do much preventative except against waves. So against bosses, she might be a little lackluster. She's nice against the people on the edges, and then she can't be CC'd. So against some of them, some of the side people potentially could. Like for example, against Marius, for example, that would be one where you can get frozen, whereas she wouldn't have that issue. So it's like I think she's like low S, still fantastic. But the cool thing about her is that if we had PvP as well, she would be, you know, A to S in there as well. So very good
Yeah,
character.
AoE stuns are just so strong.
Mm-hmm.
That for sure. Um, Next one though, I don't
Claude,
know about this guy. From
I
what I
don't know.
remember of him, oh, he's got the single target, extra damage, caps at 800% of his attack. Um, AoE a little bit. Honestly, not bad. I guess the problem I see from him is he's only doing damage and he has no extra way to buff up his damage. Kind of mediocre base attack. What do you think?
Immune to death. I'm thinking B tier. I'm thinking B, like he's nothing crazy, but he's not bad. It's not, you know, he just
Yeah.
does damage 800% of his attack. It's probably decent damage doing the math. It's not like this crazy nuke, but at the same time, it's good against bosses in the sense like I think he's great at like, you know, he hits the waves. He does good. You hit the boss, you get the side minions down a bit. He does have the 40% chance to reduce the target speed, which I kind of like on the auto attack. You know, with Katherine, auto counter attacking potential. Good against Tower of Mark, stuff like that. But not great. He's not like this amazing character. It's hard to justify unless you had like a very limited option of characters. You really want to go into Green Mark. You need like an AoE damage dealer. He's not. I think B tier's fair. I think that when you kind of feel that way about a character, I think B tier is where they go.
Yeah, you know what's funny about this is I actually hate his skill too. Like, why would you punish people? Like, deals less damage for
Uh
people
huh.
below HP. I just that one really is like, oh man, why? But yeah,
Ooh,
B tier. I just because of his third scale. Now,
got a
the one
fun
you got
one.
right now, I love Elena. Instant high A, low S tier for me.
Okay, I'm thinking low S because she's like the. I feel like she is a really good entry into bleed, but eventually the real bleeders, the ones that really bring the pain, are going to be like the Nid Rolds and the Hizanyas, or the what is his name? This guy here,
Hisaros, yeah,
Hisaro. Yeah,
100%
yeah,
agree.
yeah. So,
I think
but
people
she is
underrate
nice.
her passive. That's the
Hmm.
problem with people's perspective on her because people really underrate bleed in general. But like the fact that you could literally consistently do 10 stacks of bleeds permanently. Come on,
That's
guys.
wild.
165% times 10. We're doing 1,650% ignore defense damage on our bleeds every single turn. Like, that's nuts. Okay. That's nuts.
Hmm. Yeah, I think. Yeah, she's just insane. She's like Reeves on steroids. You know, it's absolutely crazy. She also has the built-in effect hit, so she's way easier to build. I think that's definitely something like 50% effect hit. Just here you go, you can have that, is really convenient for a bleed character like that to really make it consistent, or to like double down on just a ton of mastery for her. So I really like her. I think she's awesome. So
Elsa is the next one, though. I'm not 100% sure about this one. I talked about this when I first went over her because she's actually one of the most recent characters. The problem I have with her is that the way she works is she loses her max HP, but then she can kind of restore her max HP if she's got this like unique buff. But the problem is that she can't regain her max HP once she's lost it. She can only prevent it from being lost, which is a big problem for me, because by the end of the battle, she'll have like very low max HP, and all of her stuff is scaling off of her max HP.
Like, she's just like, it's just a percentage of it. So it's like, I don't think she's like losing it like fully, like her actual cap of her HP is going down. Deducts 20% of her max HP, as in like she just takes 20% damage hit. It's not like that one character where it's like reducing the full amount. Because I have her, I've been using her. I don't have her booked, so it's hard to say just how good she is. It's just,
oh, so you're saying it? She just takes damage, doesn't actually reduce her max HP cap. Okay, if that's the case, then I actually find her a lot better. So maybe like low A.
I think she's an A. I think she's an A character. You do need to have a damage mitigation with her, but it's especially at exclusive 1. You know, so at the beginning, I think this is. I love proactive healing in this game. Like, if you can heal out a turn somehow, then it's good. Like, for example, her auto attack heals in an AoE in a percentage here, so 4% of her HP for all allies. I think that's big because you could have the counterattacks with Katherine, so she shields, but maybe not necessarily heals everything under that shield. She comes in over the top and finishes that by counterattacking. I think that's fantastic. Then she has big heals here. She has the effect res, which I'm not the biggest fan of, in my opinion. It's very difficult to make that a guaranteed thing where you're actually reducing stuff. Her passive is very complicated, but still good. And then especially when she gets the exclusive 1, because I believe how this works, I don't have her exclusive 1, but it's like at the beginning of an ally's turn, if the HP is not higher than 60, so it's like they're kind of low, and Elsa's HP is not too low at below 40, she'll just hurt herself and then restore that ally's HP. So it's like it's kind of boosting that person up out of turn like that, beginning of an ally's turn. So they go and then get the heal, which I think is pretty sick. So especially the exclusive 1 really bumps her up, but I think A is the highest I'm willing to give her.
Yeah, I agree. And then we have Schildner next. Is that the guy's
I'm
name?
not a fan of this guy. I'm not a fan of this guy.
Oh, well, actually, I don't know. You got the basically almost guaranteed silence now, and moving shield. So like Tower of Mark, I'm seeing like potential wave content. To me, like, I don't think he's very complicated. To me, he's like a low B tier character.
Because
and that's kind of where I'd put him.
Yeah, he does have the non-guaranteed silence, right? Afterwards, 50% chance of silence. So it's like, chance doubles if they have a shield. So okay, so you can guarantee it. I do like the defense down, and I do like the removing the shield. It's just, if you played in the Halloween event, everyone has a epic version of shield removal and seal, so you kind of have that going for him. But at the same time, he's like one of those characters. He's like Nasakhma, kind of, but at the same time, maybe a little better than Nasakhma for PvE stuff. I think.
Yeah, maybe C tier. You know what? We have a lot in B tier. I kind of want to adjust this list when we get later on in the video to make it more even across the board.
I agree.
So C tier is probably where I'd put him.
Okay. So now we have
Maeve. Oh, I love Maeve.
I think she's great.
Maeve is one of those really unique characters. She has piercing rate on her ultimate, which is big. Okay, piercing rate is huge. Not only that, but she has that slumber mark, and the slumber mark is actually really, really massive. The only problem is that eventually it turns into hypnotize. If that wasn't in that ability, I would actually put her S tier. But the fact that it turns into hypnotize and that doesn't actually, do anything to a lot of people, it is kind of awkward. So,
well, what I like about her is the damage she can do because the procking of it. It's so much damage in Guild Boss. And then I believe if they haven't changed it yet, but this passive works against bosses and it also works
Yep.
against the guild boss. So you can actually,
Yep.
she's the only character that can change the speed of the guild boss, which is pretty wild. And then the combination of her being able to do a pretty good percentage damage on her auto attack plus a very good single target damage ult. I think she's kind of a specialist in my opinion. She's like a guild boss specialist, and I think guild boss is important enough to where it's useful, especially at exclusive 1. She's so good at exclusive 1.
Defense down 2 should not be underrated, guys. Oh, there's not a lot of instances of this in the game. Like,
Mhm.
you know, normally in gacha games, you have your AoE defense down. You're like, dang, I can see the massive difference. Most of the time in this game, you don't have that. Which, you know, if once you do get it, you really see the impact, and you definitely don't want to underestimate that. So 100%.
I want to say she's like a top 5 guild boss damage dealer. So it's like she has a lot of single target. It's hard to take her into dungeons. It's hard to take her into, like, the only other things I really bring her into is like Tower of Mark because I need another green. And then she's like kind of nice in those situations, but not really. When we can get to the boss, it's kind of nice. And then the hypnotize, you can kind of get a little clutch there. But for the most part, I'm thinking just a bit, like, she's good. And I really like the speed reduction and stuff. She provides a little utility, but it's like good utility because it's like damage isn't tied to hitting the stacks at 5. So it doesn't get in your way. And then the defense down is guaranteed at exclusive 1. So it's like, I'm happy with her at A because it's like what she does is really important. So.
Agreed. And Megan's the next one up. And I actually like her a lot, especially at exclusive 1. The thing that I like about her is her ultimate. Everything else about her is kind of, you know, okay, could be potentially good. What's interesting, though, is with the addition of our knowledge of the effect hit, I think she has gone up a lot on my radar. She guarantees the extra crit rate, 12% extra crit rate for your whole team, which is actually a big deal. She can increase her crit damage, as far as I know, up to 100%, which is pretty crazy. And then she has the ultimate, which has additional piercing rate. And then she has the second skill, which has a potential 40% chance on 3 stages, up to 80% chance for tenacity down and defense down. I think she's actually a premier guild boss damage. As you're saying, top 5. If you're talking about single target damage, I think Megan's probably a little bit above Maeve in terms of just strict damage amping for your team. I really like her for that.
Like, I think she's like the support. She's like another Slivelle, like in a different way. I think she kind of gets. I think Slivelle's just a better version. Like, I'd be happy with putting her A, for what she provides.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So here, let's do that.
Yeah, I think the awkward part about it is if her ultimate was a little bit different, instead of getting her 50% crit rate, it gave her 50% crit damage. I think she'd be a lot better.
Oh yeah, she'd go to the moon.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So now we got Taff here. I think this is a character that, in my opinion, I think a lot of people are really high on this guy. I think he's a character like Walter, how Walter jumps from A to S. I think he jumps from B to S, depending on what you are running with Taft.
Yeah. The thing with Taff is actually, I think he could be a lot more useful. Like, his kit on its own is like, okay, you know, kind of okay, not like bad. But the real strength is E1 resetting HP burns, resetting bleeds, resetting.
A comment said it doesn't do that. A comment said that it's misleading. It's only poisons.
Oh, well, that's, I mean, it literally
that changes
says
everything.
Of all effects. So, you know, if that is correct, then I would honestly put him potentially in C tier if he's not with a poison.
Yeah. He's like a double boost. And then if we really went in with this infographic, like have like a double arrow coming up when he's like with a poison team, but when he's not, he's just not doing enough. It's kind of nice that he has the auto poisons at the beginning, and then yes, intertwine's nice, but it's just not enough because it's like his healing is terrible, his damage is terrible because you kind of want to build him support. So it's like it needs to be with a poison. The whole point of him is to be with that team. So yeah, I'll go C, but it needs a poison team. And then people are gonna look at this list like, what, Taff and C tier? But it's like, if you watch the video, you'll understand that it needs to be with a poison team. So, because it's like I had Taft was one of my first legendaries, and then it's like I wanted to use him, but it's like he just doesn't give me anything unless I had like a full on poison team.
Yeah.
Serena here, what do you think? Like I remember when I was first starting to play this game, I was like, man, this character would be so good. But it's like now that I've, I think it's just the AoE nuker problem. Like she suffers from AoE nuker syndrome in this game, and
I
it's just not
dislike
that
her
useful.
because of her second skill. The second skill, she wastes a turn putting stealth and a shield. It's like, okay, if that gave her an extra turn, she'd jump up to A tier, in my opinion. Because it doesn't, to me, it's like a B tier, maybe even C tier. I would say mid B tier, to be honest, because she does evolve and she does, get some additional effects to her abilities. And she actually has an AoE basic with double the multiplier that Aisha has. So,
I think,
B tier, mid B tier, I would say. Decent for factions, decent for potentially tower. So
I agree. Okay, so Gru here. I really wanted to make Gru work. I've been unfortunately blessed with pulling 3 Grus. So I had exclusive 2 Gru. And also he has the funniest exclusive in the game, like the name of it. Like I just want to highlight this. This is well deserved in this thing. It is called Giant Wood. So it by far, like, if most goated name for a move in this game. So then, but other than that, that's where all the praise ends for our boy here when it comes to this, because I just don't like everything. You would think that this would work. If anyone could make this work, it would work with the ally protection, and he's doing the damage reduction on himself. You just take too much damage. I've tried taking him in. I would prefer Wim over this guy. Wim is infinitely better than this guy in making your team alive. And it takes exclusive 3. Are you kidding me? To make it to where you can have the max HP cap at 25%. You got Turf over here doing that immediately on exclusive 0. And gives a shield. He doesn't even give a shield. So it's like he's so much worse than Tuck, not Tuck. Yeah, it does all that. So it's like I think he's C tier.
Is he C? Yeah, I was gonna say C tier. I really dislike ally protection, and people won't understand if they're coming from another game or they're new to the game. This game's damage is just way too high. I don't know what else to say. Like ally protection just doesn't work. So I'm fine with C tier. That's a good one.
Yeah. And unfortunately, doesn't have a poison team to boost him up. So here we go. We got this guy here. To be honest, I need a refresher on his kit to see if this guy's any good.
Haru, I don't really like this guy. The reason why I say this is because he doesn't really do a lot of damage. His main mechanic is that intertwined, which is the stun after 2 turns. 2 turns is too long. Yeah. 2 turns of damage from the opponents is too long. He doesn't really buff up anyone. He gives a little bit of shield to his allies. If people are getting stunned by his abilities. Problem is, I was like, okay, even if you get all 5 characters stunned and then get that to your allies, that's 25% max HP shield. After 2 turns, you have to wait until they get hit by it. I hate it. C tier, maybe even D tier for me.
Yeah. He only really provides a guaranteed intertwined 1 time. And then, I'm going to just go, I think D tier, man. I just don't like this guy. He does not provide enough. At all. Like it's so bad because it's like a low percentage chance to be able to do it. Then it does it, and then you have to wait the 2 turns, like you're saying. Why would I just can't see that being good. Maybe he's like a character that you can get away with in Faction Abyss, but it's like Faction Abyss is some of the hardest content, so it's like he's bad there. Yeah, I'm definitely sold on the D tier. So now we have Gunner, and I think Gunner's very good, and I think he's one of the best people at removing the shield because he's providing so much more. All these other shielders don't do much, whereas Gunner was so clutch for me in pushing through campaign. He would be great in dungeons, and obviously, like the main thing where he's going to shine is going to be removing the shield in Tower of Mark. So I'm going to go. I want to say like low A tier, right? Yeah, like that's where we got to put him.
Yeah, he's like my number 1 choice for shield remover in Tower of Mark. He's my choice. If I had to pick someone from Doom Legion, if I were picking a team to go into to faction, Gunner would be included into that team. I really like him for his actual damage. He's tanky, but also does a lot of damage because his damage is based on defense. Even his poisons are. So I actually really like him for that reason. And then even like in a lot of different scenarios, I find that that you can even use him in other places because he can really just dish out a decent amount of damage, and that actually has a chance to apply HP burns if you guys got burns on the enemy, which is kind of interesting. I don't think he's like this particularly absolutely amazing character, but he is definitely really good at what he does, and that's for me tower faction and can slot in some other scenarios too. So decent, but not like so amazing.
He's kind of like space, like what you're talking. He's boring, but he's good. You know?
Yeah, he is boring. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I hate this next character, okay? The reason I hate it is because every single person that I see is sitting there like, man, this guy is the absolute GOAT. Like, he's so good.
Okay. They don't say, they fail to mention exclusive 3. Is that what you're gonna say? That's when he gets good?
Yeah. It's just that they're like comparing him when this guy's like absolutely on steroids, as you're saying. I think he's good. And I think he's really good for Guild Boss because when you have, it's the same reason why I think Nid Rold's really good for Guild Boss. When you have the random hits focused on one target, it becomes a really good single target nuke. Yeah. And that's where I think Besmok shines is Guild Boss. Problem is like you kind of don't really do as much damage as a lot of A tier characters, and definitely not the S tier characters until you really get them statted up.
You need pretty awesome gear, in my opinion, because it's like looking at his kit. A lot of the stuff you lose. So we're just talking to exclusive 1 max here. 15% chance to inflict dark lightning and triggers up to 2 additional attacks, which I think means he probably has the hardest hitting auto attack out of any person in the Guild Boss setting, I would assume, right? Because it's like, especially with Katherine, you're going to be auto attacking and then getting multiple attacks and then counter attacking. I don't know if counter attacking off Katherine could proc this, but if it can, that's hilarious, and it's going to do so much more damage just off his auto attack. So it's like, I think everyone agrees that he's amazing in Guild Boss, but that's really like where he truly shines. And then you can fit him in other places, but there's so many better characters and so many things that he does is so inconsistent. He has no ways of increasing his own crit. He's constantly getting a ton of benefit off of killing something else, which in hard PvE content, you want to like have the effect now. Give me the effect now so I can kill the thing. Don't give me something when I kill it. Yeah,
you're not killing something without a massive buff in this game. It's just not going to happen. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly. So I think he's so good in Guild Boss, and I really rate Guild Boss as one of the best things you could focus on in this game. So being good in one of the best possible things means he's a good character. I just think it means he's like an A tier character. Just like we have like Maeve, for example.
Low A tier, I would say.
Yeah. It's just he's just in other places you're gonna feel bad, especially if he's like one of your first legendaries and you're trying to push. Good luck, because raw damage dealers really need good stats. You need to have like a fully well statted out character, and then still they can be a little finicky because it's very hard to get 100% crit rate in this game. So now we got Margarita. I think this character is gonna be B tier because AoE damage is obviously easily one of the best PvP characters, but we're talking PvE here. I think she deserves to be B tier only because even though she's doing some of the best AoE damage, we don't really need it that much. It's just not that useful. So I think she's a B tier PvE character. What do you think?
You think B tier? I would say for PvE content, I kind of agree.
Yeah, we got her. I mean, she's high B, but
yeah. She's insane when it comes to like that one nuke. If you're talking about one nuke, she really is insane for that AoE. Problem is again, it's like, where are you going to use an AoE nuke? You know?
Yeah.
High B works for me.
Yeah, high B because like, so you do that in Tower Mark, for example. You like nuke the first wave, you wait multiple turns, nuke the second wave, then you do basically nothing against the boss. You need another person to be able to finish it out. So then that person could have grinded those 2 waves and got to the boss and killed the boss themselves. So it's like, I think that alone means she's B tier. Focus though, I think this guy's very interesting and probably deserves like an S tier or maybe a high A. I think this guy is really good.
Ooh, yeah. So I mean, you can control focus on auto. The problem is, or like with the correct skill manipulation, I was told that this guy focuses his divine prayer on the guy with the highest attack.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. This could be potentially good.
From what I've
But
seen,
the
that's
problem,
how it works. I don't have him,
yeah,
but against him.
the problem I see is like, okay, let's say your highest attack character is going and already used their ultimate, or and it's like 4 turns in, and then he uses this skill, giving them that turn, but doesn't reset the cooldowns. I think he's a lot worse. So, but then he also has the extra turn meter for himself when enemies die. I don't know. I would
Immortal's
say
good.
A tier.
I think he's. I'm trying to think if there. For example, A tier in the sense you kind of need a combo with someone good. He's an activator of a good character, so I'll take the fact that you need to have the good character, and it's unfair to give him the S tier status if you don't have that other character to back him up. So I think you're correct. He shouldn't be S. He definitely shouldn't be S. He's definitely S in PvP probably. I wouldn't say definitely. I don't see. I feel like it's kind of like there's a very specific comp for it. But for PvE, we're gonna put him there. Here, let me get this going. And we'll put him A. I think bottom A, probably. Okay, Achman. I think Achman deserves to be probably bottom S, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like this guy. So here's my question: if we're saying, and that person said that Tath doesn't reset all dots, does Achman only reset burns and HP burns?
I'm not sure. I can't trust a mistranslation or just something wrong to and then go off that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And so it's like, because I actually like that to pair him with like a bleed. I actually like him to pair with bleeds, so you can refresh the duration while also running some HP burns and burns, which makes him really strong in guild boss, in my opinion, because he attacks at random with his ultimate, right? But it's all going to hit the guild boss if you are running him. So that could potentially be really good paired with bleeds, but I don't know. I think he's still really solid outside of that for like a lot of dungeons and for some AoE HP burns and burns in general. He actually does a lot of damage and he's pretty survivable. So yeah, I would definitely say low S tier is probably where I'd put him, to be honest.
Yeah, the bummer thing though is that he's so good early. Like if everyone could like work to this guy and get him at a reasonable time, I think people would like this game a lot more. Like imagine if he was the guy you work towards, not he's like the first Katherine. You know how, because he's in, imagine if they like half the cost for him so people can really start to grind and get it. So they would get him about the same time they get Katherine or maybe a little bit before. I think that'd be so good for the game's progression. He'd be like the perfect character for that. Because he's not as good as Hazonia, he's not as good as Melia, not as good as Sigmund. So there's still a lot of value there, and they already have him in the shop anyway. So it's like, you get a S minus character there. So I think he's definitely up there, and S character, not S minus. So now, Little
Let's
Jack.
see. Then we have Little Jack. I hate this guy. He's a C tier. I do not care.
Moving on, Jennifer. I don't like Jennifer. Yeah, let's just throw her in. C. Yeah, she does have severe wound, I believe. So a little bit different on. She's kind of nice, like early progression, and then also Gwyneth. So not that great. I think this character is a little underrated. She gets a bad rap. Everyone talks about how good Ellic is. Then why is she always completely dumpstered? Yes, she doesn't have a cool passive that takes debuffs away, but she does something, in my opinion, better than one of Ellic's main moves. So it's like you got this move here where it's defense up 60% and the res debuff. This is so much better than a lot of moves for survivability, and is different than Katherine. So you can like pair this with Katherine if you really need a ton of survivability, and you prevent the debuffs instead of getting them cleanse off later. I think she doesn't do anything else. Like everything else on her kit sucks, but that's a really good move, right? So it's like I feel like that deserves at least bottom of B, maybe high C.
Yeah, to be honest, where I would put Ellic is B tier. I personally believe Ellic is a B tier character.
Okay.
Or like low. low A, B tier, and I would put L at Pilot, whatever.
Yeah,
Like high C, maybe low B. The thing is, the exclusive one, you get that shield. It's a 4-turn cooldown.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, both of them, like I'm comparing it to him because Ellic has a 4-turn with the tenacity, and it's like, okay, a tenacity 1 versus a res debuff, infinitely better. The res debuff.
True.
Yeah, so
True.
it's like
It's not an effect hit resistance or effect resistance. It's actually just debuff, like block
yeah,
debuffs, which is pretty good. So, I would say probably low B. I mean, the thing is like if we're gonna even this out, she's probably gonna end up high C. So that's probably where I'd put her.
yeah. Let's go high C. Let's go high C. So Santa, give him the little S treatment for sure. I think enough said when it comes to our boy Santa, right?
Yeah, an exclusive one. He's gonna get that speed down, speed up with the shield, which is really good. It's a big shield too. 3-turn cooldown, by the way, really really important about that.
Yeah.
And then you got all the other stuff. Like, yes, the passive is broken on E3, but the passive's still really good at E1 or E0 because you're still giving 27% damage, or actually, I don't think it's increased. It's about like 20% damage to your attackers or like 15% damage reduction to your defense units. Like, it's still good. It's just not broken. So I think, S tier is probably where I'd put him.
Okay, so Hoff here. I'm a big fan of Hoff, but I think reasonably, I think high A. Well, there's a lot of good people in A. I think he's just an A character. He's just good. He's amazing in Guild Boss, and he's really good in PvE. So it's like he has the AoE HP burn, which I think for most dungeons is fantastic. It's a way bigger deal than a single target HP burn for most things. And then he has a fantastic auto attack. I think he has one of the best auto attacks in the game because he's reducing 50% of their effect hit on that. And then his A2 is amazing too because he gets the tenacity down 2 and the defense down 2. I think he's just a really, like, this is exactly like a fair and balanced A tier character, in my opinion.
Yeah. I actually completely agree. We're going to have, can you actually get 2 HP burns on this?
Yeah.
Ultimate?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's 2 HP burns, you got the 2 HP burns. I don't really care about feebleness, which, that's E2, so it doesn't even matter. But then you're going to get the defense down 2 and the tenacity down 2. But I actually would like what you said. Honestly, the thing that I love about him is this A1 and A2, the defense down and the tenacity down paired with the effect resistance down. Mm-hmm. You could guarantee this with Katherine counterattacks basically every turn, which basically means you get 50% effect hit, assuming that's how it works, to all your characters, which can really help out your guild boss team for just guaranteeing effects. I really like this guy. I would say high A tier personally.
Yeah, like I get about similar results. I get a little bit better with Ben Austin, but he's like, I had him in before Ben Austin, and then I almost didn't even really notice a difference in damage because he's giving so much to the team because you can like not have to worry about effect hit with him. You don't have to worry about defense down, and then you also gain tenacity down, which Ben Austin doesn't even provide. And then I would just turn off the HP burn because I already have Melia doing it. And so just those 2 moves are like S tier in shoring up so much in Guild Boss. So it's like high A tier is totally fair. I think he's S tier in Guild Boss if we're like separating it all out. So it's like a very good character.
I hate Naziel in PvE content, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd ever use this guy.
Just like inconsistent freezing and no damage, and he's like the definition of like maybe B tier, like maybe C tier, bottom B tier character for PvE. It's just like a little bit of survivability. It's like you can't be proactive or reactive in PvE in this game unless you're doing stuff that's too easy. So it's like I'm gonna go
C. I say C. I actually really dislike this guy. I don't like the ally protect, but yeah.
I'll go solid C. I think Greta is an amazing character for PvP, but I think for this, I think she's like B at best. Let me look at her one more time just to make sure.
She has the feebleness too for green mark, by the way, which is actually pretty good. She has the removing of all buffs, which is also a really, really important thing. And she smacks really hard. And what's interesting about her exclusive one is that her ultimate is now going to remove buffs, apply defense down 2, and then smack with massive damage. So I would put her solid in the B category. Definitely, if I were to make my team out of the green mark, Greta is going to be 100% in the Tower of Mark team and in my faction team for sure. That's kind of how I'm thinking about her.
Yeah. She's great. It's just she's like top B. She's like top of B tier. So we'll adjust that at the very end. Melia, that's a definite just middle S in my opinion. I think
I've honestly felt like she's dropped down to like the low. She's still S, but like low S. For me, I like the counterattacks. To me, like where she really shines is Guild Boss, and then outside of Guild Boss, she's still really good. But oftentimes will be replaced by either more survivability or like an AOE HP burner.
Like I replaced her with Hoff and Sigmund, like for example, and then if I had Hisonia, I'd probably replace both of them with Hisonia. So it's like the thing that really makes up for it though is that she's like actually one of the best, easy top 3 damage dealers for the guild boss. So it's like you're taking someone that's top there and very good against a ton of bosses. Also, like one of the best characters for Tower of Mark. So it's like I think she deserves her S status, but it's like, I would almost go as far as to say when you go to E1, she's only A tier in PvE, and then once you start, the second she hits E2 and above, then that's when she becomes S. Like I can see that argument, because I don't like her in dungeons because she goes 2 times. So it's like, okay, unless you make her faster than your Katherine, then she just dies. So then that's very difficult to do. You don't want to slow down your Katherine. You need to have your Katherine faster than the bosses. So unless you have 2,300 speed, you could be given Melia with enough effective, with enough mastery. You just have like insane gear. Sure, she's insane there. Then I take it all back. But most people don't have that.
Yeah, E2 and E3 is where she gets better, in my opinion. But this next character, I also hate this one. I don't know why anyone would use this character. I really dislike her, and honestly, she's like an instant C tier.
Okay, yeah, let's just move on. I think this character's gotten a lot better with the bleed changes. In Natalie,
He definitely has, and she has a lot of guaranteed bleeds on a lot of different scenarios. The only problem is I find that she doesn't really do enough damage, and she's not applying a ton of bleed. She's actually a really good AOE bleeder, and that's one thing that you don't really have all that often. Like Elena is the other AOE bleeder. But for single target bleeds, she falls like way below Reeves, or like Hisaro or Lukea, or like all the other bleeders that are single target. She's way below them. But for AOE bleeds, she's actually one of the best. So
yeah,
you know,
I just feel like they should have made her a poisoner. Like you keep the identity of an AOE as the poison, and then she would be like one of the best. But unfortunately, she's a bleed, and everyone else does single target, so it's hard to really fit her in. So yeah, and then she does have the effect res down stuff. I don't know. I think let's just throw her B.
Yeah, but here's an easy one. We'll just take 10 seconds for this. Hisonia's exclusive one is literally, in my opinion, the best exclusive in the game. He is literally on par with Katherine. If you have that space in S tier, it goes Katherine, Hisonia right behind her, and then a space between everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much that close. Maybe you can even go like that if I really want it to be. And then, yeah, it's just absolutely no question that he's like the best PvE character in the game by a large margin. Well, him and Katherine are the best too. So maybe, can you argue nowadays, maybe at exclusive 3, it's going to be something along these lines?
I personally think Nicholas is better than Katherine.
Oh, at exclusive 3?
Hot take maybe, but I actually think that just the straight stats that you get from him and the fact that you can't die that first time is just so much security, so many just free stats, so good, man. Guys.
Yeah, okay. So exclusive 3 tier list is gonna have massive changes. Okay, and then now we got her, she's like a C, maybe B tier character for me.
Yeah, I would say high C. She does some really good single target, but she literally only basics and ults. she literally just does damage. Like that's
Yeah.
it. And it's not
And
like an
single
absurd amount
target.
of damage. So
Yeah. Okay. Card here. I think Card's just a Tower Mark character. He
yep.
does have like the AoE. We'll go C tier for the most part, but like Tower Mark, if you need him, there you go. You can remove the shields. Like other characters that do that are just better at being a character. He's just
Mhm.
not that good. So then now we got Taff here. I think this guy is
Oh, I
probably
think he's B.
yeah, B, and then he goes up to A in a poison team. So
Yeah, decent damage from him.
okay, my boy Quinlan here though. I'm thinking S. I'm
Oh,
thinking
see, this is someone I'm really high on, but I haven't tested him out yet. I think he's so strong. What you did some more testing. You have him upgraded. What do
yeah.
you think? I'm gonna refer to you.
Okay, so maybe I might take it back because he's definitely S tier, definitely amazing in PvP. The freezing is guaranteed on his other one, but you need to have some kind of setup. So you can either set it up with like he goes slower and then he has space with him, and then he applies his own HP burns and then goes in and freezes everyone. Um, if you have another HP burner, I think he's S tier. If you don't, he's kind of lackluster in my opinion. When he's the only HP burner on your team, he can't really do the freezing himself. And then he hurts himself as he does it, but his A2 hits like an absolute truck. It is very good because he's essentially doing what people like Nid Rold do and stuff like that. And then the freeze, especially with Katherine on the counterattack, is actually pretty consistent, even though it's a lower percentage. So I do like him. Worst case scenario, I think I'm gonna go very high A because he can't freeze on himself. And then as he goes up, his exclusives only get better from there, and he gets like kind of busted when he can like be slower. But if people are faster, then he gains turn meter because of it, which is like a really dumb mechanic in my opinion. It's like he's rewarded for going slow in multiple ways. So it's like, oh, you're faster than him, and then he just gets the turn meter boost. So it's like, I don't know, it
Uh,
just feels like the kid that just like makes the rules as he goes up, you know. So
so
keeps getting better.
the problem I had with him initially was that deducts 25% of max HP from self. There's a similar to how Ace wording was like just like absolutely atrocious. I feel like this game has a major problem with that in terms of like quality of life of understanding and everything. You have to kind of test a lot of characters. To me, that reads, oh, you're gonna remove 25% HP and you have to restore it some way. Not I lost like take 25% of your max HP and damage, right? There's like a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
difference.
Hmm.
But seeing that you guys you're saying that that's like just damage taken, I'm actually way higher on this guy, and I agree with you. Basically,
Yeah,
high A.
yeah, yeah. He's great. Yeah, I've been using him in my runs for consistency because it's like very difficult. But he's one of the few having consistent CC is like almost unheard of in this game. So it's like I can guarantee freeze that first wave, and then I can like guarantee shield the second wave, and then get the freeze back. So it's like he's very good. Okay. Now we have Carrie here. I think this character is only designed to be the bane of your existence in Faction Abyss. This is by far the most annoying passive in the entire game, and it is complete garbage. So here, let me give some context of what this passive is. What is Carrie? She's
So Carrie, when she dies, she
Colonel Psych.
becomes like a ghost spirit for 3 turns, and then comes back and smacks you.
Yeah.
It's
Yes. But what she does is increases all allies critical rate by 20% and reduces all enemies crit rate by 20% when Demon Shadow is on the battlefield. So when she's dead, she's increasing the boss's damage by 20%. So then it hits like an absolute truck. If a boss ever crits, you're just basically dead. So it's like so annoying because it goes from, I believe, 30% crit rate, can't confirm that, to 50%, and they hit like an absolute truck. So it's PvE wise, she's just really annoying. I think she's a terrible character if we're piloting her.
yep.
C tier, C for
I
Carrie.
think maybe even D tier. The
Oh,
thing
just because I
that
can't stand her, we'll put her down here.
yeah,
D
the
for the
only
demon
use I
form.
see for her is campaign as someone to die to increase your main carries.
Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah.
it.
Okay, yeah. So, Ascendo, I think B tier for PvE. Silence is pretty great. Maybe a bottom A.
Yeah.
We go in bottom A.
I don't know if I like her as much as you're saying. I would put low B. Honestly, I'm
Low
not as
B.
high, so maybe
Okay.
like mid B is kind of where we settle on.
Okay. Absolutely
That's
go
kind
to
of where
for
I'd put her.
campaign. I would say like A for campaign. She'd be like a top. If you're still trying to clear campaign, you have her. You're like definitely build her because she's amazing in PvP. That's no question. But then in campaign, she's insane, especially for the ones with the Lizzes and stuff. You could just silence them all and get rid of them. Okay, Agatha E1. I would say what like A or S.
Oh, Agatha,
Well, let's put
man.
her in the who cares category because no one has her. And then like, and then Dario. I am not a fan of A1 Dario or E1 Dario. I'm gonna put him in the C category because I think he's complete garbage. Without, I had him exclusive 3, and he's hilarious, but he's literally a different character. So who cares unless you get him exclusive 3? Because that's when he finally gets the 2 hits off his passive. But if he doesn't have the 2 hits on his passive, like he's just not that good in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough damage.
Yeah. And then now Lamb is weird. This is a bizarre character. What do you think of Lamb?
Get this. I have him. I just pulled him, and I asked my comment section if his HP burn mechanic or his black flame, I think it's called, works through the Tower of Mark shield, and people were saying yes, because it's not a technical debuff. It's like a unique debuff. And I think that he actually does a lot of damage if you're stacking it up, comparable to HP burn. Now, because HP burn caps at 5, having him with the black flame actually does a lot of damage. So I'm actually pretty high on, or higher. I shouldn't say pretty high. I'm higher on him than a lot of people. I would probably put him in B tier, to be honest. I think that he potentially can be paired with the HP burns. So yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Like that is very interesting in like, so yes, green tier has seal for free, but this can actually be pretty clutch in those situations where you don't even need to worry about it. You can just throw those on, and eventually, like, you've reduced his HP enough, and you start to do ticking damage to where you might be starting to actually make some progress there. So I think that's interesting. I think he's so unique that it would be fun to try him out because he's like the only one close.
I want to build him as my next character just to see, because I feel like he's one of those characters where it's hard to say theoretically. Like some of these are like, oh, he's going to do defense down, so good, But when you're talking about like Black Flame, how long does it take to stack? How much does it do? Like that's where it really comes into play. Zach Zulu, I hate this guy.
We're gonna put him right here. Put him right here.
I'm okay with that. I do not like this guy.
I think he's complete dog. He probably deserves C tier, but I pulled 2 of them, so I'm bitter, and I'm gonna put him down there. He needs a buff. Okay, so that was it. That's the list. We did it.
Was there any adjustments that we would want to make? I feel like if I were to just quickly mention my thoughts, I think S tier is good. All of those characters, if I pulled them, I'd be very happy to get them. A tier looks pretty good as well. The thing I have is like B, C, D tier. I have a hard time taking any character that can remove shields out of C tier and into D tier. It has to be C minimum, in my opinion.
True.
But there's a few characters that could go into D tier, like Aisha, Gramndi, Frisk or Frich or Fitch or whatever his name is, could go into D. That's gonna move some
down here. Okay, so we got him.
Actually, Shielder can remove shield. So Aisha, Gramndi, the troll, and the AoE. And then maybe Sinton. Honestly, that feels bad because
I think
Sinton
he's better
was my
than
first
that.
legendary.
He's better than D. Right. But at the same time,
be, right?
Yeah, I think he deserves to be. Like, out of all these characters we have here, let's move him back here because I feel like some of these characters. So C is the minimum for Carrot and these people because these guys are at least Tower of the Mark users. And
they're like so rare. So
yeah.
And then you probably move. Who in the B tier would I move down? Maybe people like Eric.
I think Eric probably deserves C, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as I move him down 1. Timi might deserve C tier as well, kind of similar to the Nasakhmas and Carrots. And who else? Maybe Natalie deserves C tier as well.
I think Natalie and what do you think about Olga?
Yeah, I feel like she's too niche for the combo to really work and
Mhm.
really get a lot of value out of. So I think C tier is probably good. I think that's kind of where I'd put it. Without them like perfectly in order, like I'd probably move Natalie a little bit above some people, maybe Olga a little bit above some people. But other than that, um, I think this is a pretty decent list. Agatha is the one outstanding one because it's a whale character. I mean, it's just gonna be forever until any free to play gets her. I actually I like her a lot. Um,
What are you thinking? You thinking bottom S or are you thinking top of A?
oh, this is tricky. She's gonna remove that shield. She has. I honestly, maybe she's not as good as I think.
She removes the
Problem
shit.
is she like a B tier character?
Oh, okay. Hold on. We're gonna need to. Let me pull this up.
I actually don't
That's
like her that
the
much,
hottest
to be
it takes.
honest.
We save it for the
I
last. Here we go. So we got Agatha. Okay, so I got to just keep her in the spirit of E1. Okay, gains a shield by 40% of max health at the beginning of each wave. Gains bloody shield 20% of self max HP at the beginning of each turn. If she does not have any shield, bloody shield cannot be stolen or removed. Agatha is immune to all control effects when she has shield. Um,
I
three
mean, I'm just looking at
stages.
her damage, right? She does damage based on her max HP.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm looking at that, that's significantly less than someone who actually does single target damage with crit rate, crit damage, and things like that, and just attack.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, she can at least crit and stuff. She doesn't have
yeah,
that.
she can crit off of that, but the damage you're dealing is just too, like the multipliers are too low. Like if you just compare, let's say you have a million HP and you look at the basic, right? It's 12%, which is going to be 120k. Times two, so 240k. Let's compare that to, I don't know, let's go Zia, right? Just look at
Mm-hmm.
Zia's basic because we're thinking about A tier, right? So Zia's basic, or she's S tier, but all right, where is she? Where do we put her? I think we're in A tier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm losing track
Um,
of her on the sheet,
I
but
mean, oh, I moved her to top of A.
okay, so yeah, so she's A tier. So if we're gonna compare strict like A tier to A tier, Zia's
Um,
basic is doing 300% attack damage. And if we have attack damage, I don't know, 25k, which is usually pretty average, like an average stat. That's 300% of that. That's going to be 75k. So maybe Agatha is a little bit better, but a million HP is kind of hard to get to. Usually I can only get about 15 or
well,
500k.
she
That's
might
where I'm
be
at.
an arena character because it's like you get the 50% boost in arena, and so then the HP actually kind of scales there. So like having a HP
True.
scaling character, and then you get the shield ceiling. I think she's like weirdly a tower mark character and like a flex arena character. And to be honest, like I think just I don't see where I would ever use her in PvE except tower mark, which is complete opposite because if you're doing 600 stars worth of your faction abyss, you're well beyond tower mark. You don't need that. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw her B, and then people can say what's up because it's like I just don't see why would you ever want to use this character in PvE content. But like at the same time, I do think she's probably gonna be pretty clutch in PvP. So I'm gonna put her like top of B because like I really don't think she's that good in this section. Like you got low damage, you steal shields, who cares? Except Tower Mark. Yes, she's definitely good in Tower Mark, but it's like by the time you get her, it's so well beyond that. So like, I agree.
Yeah, I think that I said this the same thing before her rework. I put her in like C tier for me. I think she got better, but I think people just see a faction character and they're like, "Dang, it must be broken. Like it must be the
Mm-hmm.
Lydia of this game where she's mega S tier with like some of the most important buffs or whatever." But she's literally just a single target damage dealer. Like if you just read her kit, and then she's got the AOE on the third skill. It's all
Mm-hmm.
based on her max HP, which admittedly does a decent amount of damage if you just run the math, but she doesn't offer anything else really. So
Uh-huh.
like if you're comparing to
But
those higher A tier characters, like Megan or Zia who's just doing more damage, or in S tier like Slivelle who's giving that attack up. I'm not a huge fan of her. She's
I agree. It's like she does have the AoE, but it's like who cares on that? And then she does have the immunity to HP burning, which is fantastic against like a Hazonia. Like against Katherine Hazonia, she's gonna completely pop off, in my opinion. She's gonna be stealing shields, she's gonna be immune to HP. She goes in and just bodies people, So it's like I think an arena character. I think that, and then an arena character makes sense for this because the people that care about it, like the whales, like that's what they're gonna care about. They're gonna care about arena. So it makes perfect sense to have this. And like you'll probably have her built out and then she'll probably do okay in PvE, but it's like not because she's good there, it's because you just have a strong team and she's HP based and she's not gonna, take too much damage. Like she's okay in that situation, but she's not excelling.
Yeah, I mean, in arena she just gets a 50% damage bonus, right? Because of the HP.
Oh yeah.
I think does it go up to 100% or is it just?
I believe it's 50% it's 50%, but then it goes up to 30 if you're in King, so you get like 80% total.
So like you just get a straight up in classic arena 50% HP period, which is like again a 50% damage increase because all of our damage is based on max HP. And as you're saying, I think it's literally just meant for kind of that like situational arena counter. So in PvP, I might put her in A or S tier, but not for PvE. I just don't see it. So
Okay, so there it is. There's our list. Okay. Definitely thank you so much for joining for this. This was a very extensive breakdown. I don't think we're gonna do this for a very long time. Like this is gonna stand for a while, and so this is a lot. But hopefully it gave people an insight on exactly what we think and where we would place these characters if you end up pulling them. I think a big thing about this game is there's a lot of context and a lot of nuanced opinions, and this long form content is really the only way to really clearly bring that out. So it needed to be this long. Definitely go subscribe. I'll have all of Veilshot's channels linked down in the show notes down below. And with that, guys, we are out of here. Peace.
See ya.